No, now you can stop it.
Say again, Michael.
Yeah, we can stop the recording.
Okay, super.
And CJ, I am recording now here, and I'm just going to let my machine run. I can record for the next 2 hours without any problem.
Okay, super.
Is that what you needed?
Yes, it is exactly what I need. And then mainly my main concern is that my connection not govern the meeting.
It doesn't.
So
once you've made us co-hosts,
then even if we lose me, the meeting will stay up and remain with you guys.
I believe so.
Okay, great.
And tonight for Sonny's presentation, he has he's going to be using 2 computers, possibly 3,
Okay,
because he wants to put cameras inside his aircraft, and he wants to be able
right.
to display them side by side, so we can spotlight him.
Okay.
I believe we can spotlight him. Is that feature turned on?
Let me just check.
You need to go into the settings, and you have access to that.
All right, so, yep, so I'm checking, and unfortunately we are doing meeting settings from an iPhone. 1 second while I just admit Rob Leonard. Welcome, Rob. Thank you for bearing with us and for being early. And welcome to 50-year CFII George Merriam. Glad to see you, George. You're going to hear us doing a little tinkering because we've had, last week was a network failure. This week we've had a computer failure with Pete Morse, our usual host. And so we're doing a little bit of rejiggering. Okay, I'm going into meeting settings.
Yep, and you're going to go through that list, and you're going to, there should be, first of all, allow participants to rename themselves.
And for me, on my side, that is not an option I have.
Are you in settings on the app itself, or are you in like?
I'm in settings on an iPhone in the app. Yeah, but Robert, well, I admit people, can you go into that setting, please? Because you're in from a computer.
That would be,
find it.
Robert, that would be the web interface. It would take you like you'll go to settings.
Okay, so I need to log on to the web.
You need, well, you can from Zoom when you go into your settings.
Okay, well, I'm trying to figure out where that is because I'm just in ND right now. Now, let me look under more. No, there's rename. All I have under.
Oh, can you give the folks the ability to rename? And I don't see Spotlight either.
All right, let me get up a web browser and go log on. But no, Piper Comanche, no. Let me get up a Zoom and see what I can do.
Yeah, this CJ, this is probably where we need to, like, just the 2 or 3 of us go in and go into the actual settings in Zoom on the web interface so that all these features come up available in the Zoom sessions.
To us all. Yes.
Yeah, well, to the host and co-host where you can spotlight. Actually do this as a web cast.
Yep. And welcome everybody. Our usual host and recorder, Pete Morse, is having an issue with computers and networks. And so we're trying to do some rejiggering since our usual process is requiring some last minute revamping. We will still be able to go forward, but we're trying to make it amazing.
Okay, I am now logged on as on Zoom itself.
On the web interface, and you can go to settings.
I do not see settings. I'm looking.
I can't do it from here because I'm not the owner of this account.
Well, I logged on as the owner. Okay, there's settings. Just a second.
Okay, great.
There's the waiting room.
Yeah, enable waiting room, which is already enabled.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the option about
rename and spotlight.
Yeah, well, I'm looking for rename and okay, I'm looking for those 2.
And while you guys work on that, I'm going to keep with admissions.
Am I co-host? I'm not co-host yet. That's probably why I don't have any.
Are you Ernie James?
No, I'm Michael Saperton. I'm Barbara James.
Okay,
Oh, Barbara James.
you are still. Yep. No, there's an Ernie. Ernie was having some issue. Okay, I've made you co-host.
No, yeah. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, great.
Nate is coming in. We'll let him in.
Yep.
Okay, I think I just now allowed participants to rename themselves.
So you did.
Excellent. That'll help a lot with FAA Wings credit. So everyone who's coming in and looking for FAA Wings credit or is interested in it, you will need to register, and I will post a link to register for FAA Wings credit in the chat window. And feel free to unmute and be like, wait, I don't know how to find the chat window, and we'll help you.
And the other one was about,
Damn. Okay, I got Spotlight. Okay, my host features gave me, my co-host gave me the ability to Spotlight. So when we have Sonny on and he's got his two computers going.
Yep,
either
he
you
just
or
joined.
Okay, good. We're gonna go ahead. So like, for example, I'm gonna spotlight, I'll spotlight CJ since she's got video. Let's see if we can do that. Spotlight for everybody.
where do you
And,
find that spotlight option?
You right mouse click on the person's picture, and then let's find Sonny. Hold on a second. So right now, the only person we're gonna see no matter what is gonna be Piper Comanche, CJ.
Uh-oh.
And, no, well, let's, hang on a second. I don't see, well, Daniel, do you mind if I use you as an example? Oh, he's muted. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add Spotlight. So now everybody sees the two side by side. So we'll be able to see, can you see this, CJ?
Let's see. Right now I see you and then my thumbnail, but I'm on an
Okay,
iPhone,
you
so I
wanna-
might be different.
Yeah, but you want to swipe it and go to speaker. I mean, go to, you want to get that presenter screen going now. The Spotlight.
Okay.
And then you want to change your view. Your best view would be speaker view. So right now only,
Gotcha.
okay. Are you admitting? I'm going to admit, Chris.
I am admitting.
Okay.
Yep. So you guys
So-
focus and I'll keep letting people in.
And everybody else that's on a computer right now, you see, there's Sonny. Let's go ahead and put Sonny on. I'm gonna change the spotlight to Sonny now. Replace spotlight. So now it's Sonny. And let's say let's use Martin as an example. So we're gonna add spotlight. So now what just happened? Hang on a second. I'll use you, Ray. How about Ray? You okay with that?
I'll just put everybody on the spot. Hey, Ray.
Hey, yeah, I'm gonna just get you. I'm going after you. Where's Sonny? There's Sonny. Let me spotlight Sonny.
I am right here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah,
Loud and clear,
Sonny,
Sonny.
we figured out how to do this. So we're gonna spotlight you so we can have those two cameras you wanted going.
Okay,
Okay.
great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to join from actually my cell phone instead of the other laptop. That way I can just do Zoom from the phone, and that makes it easy.
Perfect.
So this one will stay where it is. The other one will be, we'll basically use Zoom on it.
Okay,
It'll
great.
say Sonny-phone or something.
Okay, great. Okay, so when that time comes, we'll spotlight those two computers, this one and your phone, and then everybody can see what you're going to be demonstrating. Okay.
Perfect. I also have to warn you that we're getting a torrential downpour at the moment. So there may be some background noise. We'll just have to work through it.
You sound a little bit distorted, actually.
Does it?
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, this is Robert. I'm going to step away for maybe 20 minutes or so. If necessary, I'll have my cell phone, so just text my cell phone if you need me to come down and do something. When
CJ, I don't have your phone number, Robert.
I'll send it to you privately.
Okay, great.
I will re-enable the video when I get back down.
Okay, great. I need to step away for a few minutes myself here before we
Okay,
get going.
I've got it, you guys.
All right, so I'm going to release these spotlights, okay?
All right, perfect. And everybody welcome. And then Robert should start recording probably anytime now.
Do you want me to make the backup recordings too?
That would be wonderful. Yep.
All right, I'm going to.
Pete is normally our absolutely robust, reliable, and backed up normally by Bernie and
Would you
Les
like-
and Les.
Is he recording it locally or is he recording it to the cloud?
He's not able to tonight. Last week we had a network failure, recovered from that, and now he's got a computer charging failure. So Robert is one of our key backups. Robert's recording locally, and then if you can record
the
locally as
cloud.
well,
You want me to record locally as well? Okay.
that would be ideal. That way we get a solid copy
And-
that we can then move up onto the server.
And then you have a place I can put this, right?
We do. Yep.
And Mike, did
Yeah.
you get the cell number? And yes, I'm recording locally and I will be back somewhere around 20 after to half past.
Okay, great. I believe, how can I confirm that I am recording as well? Okay, good. Okay, so both are going. And I got your cell phone number. I'm going to step away for a minute and these spotlights are going away. This is fun. This actually this is making good use of Zoom right now.
Welcome, you guys.
Hi, CJ. I'll answer your hello from before. Hi.
Hey, and I'm also looking at Sonny and everybody sitting with him in front of a really, really beautiful and traditionally painted Comanche that apparently flies like, look, ma, no hands.
Yes, it does.
That is great. So congratulations.
Thanks. So I'm Sonny. We did this last night.
Yep.
Man. I'm John Gearhart.
Say that again, you guys. Sonny's audio is a little bit crisper.
Jeff Mann and Dave.
Oh, Jeff. And Dave, you said?
I'm John Gearhart from Sentinel Aviation.
John Gearhart. It's a pleasure to have you guys all here. So, well, this is awesome. And I just want to do a special welcome to Owen Catherwood, because if Owen hadn't bought his 260B, it wouldn't have been available for Garmin to do the certification of the GFC500. So Owen, welcome.
Hey, CJ.
And another,
Can you hear us?
you're loud and clear.
Okay. I changed microphones. I wasn't sure if it was better or worse. John, can you say something? How you doing? Could you hear, John?
I would say worse. Your original mic is probably
Okay.
better.
Let me change it back.
Well, welcome everybody. And so this is going to be a really interesting evening. I want to just do a special welcome, and we'll do this again later, to Rob Leonard of Bradley Visto. Rob is a real asset to the community for multiple reasons, not least because his presence and work is making this be able to be available as a wings safety credit for all of us, and also because Rob's an avionics expert with a specialty in autopilots, and so some of our earliest Comanche Zooms covered the autopilots, the care and feeding and maintenance of our earliest autopilots. So it's like kind of an extra, trifecta of expertise there. I also want to say hi to Owen Catherwood, who I met actually at the first ComancheTown at Sun and Fun. Owen had just bought his Comanche. He and Malcolm Dickinson, if I recall, flew it all the way out to the West Coast, where he then had the owner trial by fire and eventually made it available as the certification aircraft for the Garmin GFC500. And he works for Garmin. So that's kind of extra cool. So, and then Michael Sapperton is saving our sanity and bacon this evening. So an extra thanks for him. And Eric Jones, is that you, the Eric that just joined? All right. Well, Eric Jones, I think will be here later, and Garmin knew Eric Jones as the person who relentlessly rode Garmin to do our aircraft. And then Wayne McGee may be with us later. And Wayne was the person that took the Comanche numbers over to Garmin so that they certified all the Comanches and not just the later model ones. So anyways, so welcome everybody. And everybody jump into any quiet moment and say who you are, where you are, what you fly. And I'm just going to tag Sonny to introduce everybody and start the go around.
All right, so we are working through adding additional mics so it gets a little, you can hear us a little bit better. But I tend to be really loud, so hopefully you can hear me. My name is Sonny Mounicou. This is my plane, 8573 Papa, and I have had it since September of 2019 after getting my license in August of 2019. So I jumped in head first or upside down, or I don't know which way you want to say, but it's been a rush and a blur ever since. And that's it.
Jeff Manning, Day Aviation. Glad to be here. We installed the GFC500 on Sonny's bird. I handed it off to John. He assisted me on the install. John Gearhart from Centennial Aviation. I'm John Gearhart from Sentinel Aviation. The autopilot install was challenging. It was a good install, very solid autopilot. We're happy to be a part of it.
Hey, CJ, you're on mute.
Bear with me 1 second.
Hey, I'll jump in there now. Anyway, good to be on board here tonight. I saw this advertisement that Peter sent out regarding the GFC500, and it really struck an interest with me, having an autopilot background. I was amazed with the GFC700 when it first came out with the G1000 series, Garmin G1000 series autopilots. I'm just amazed with its capability. And I see that the GFC500 is even at that level, if not even more advanced with some of its features, which Sonny's going to be talking about tonight, but I'm also going to be talking about some of those safety features too. It's great to be on board. I'm glad we struggled a little bit with whether we should, Peter and I talked about it, whether we should grant wings credit tonight. And he was like, I don't know, I'm not sure it qualifies. And as I looked at it and I looked at what Sonny's presenting tonight, I really think it does qualify, because I think the more a pilot understands about his autopilot system and how it works, it helps you to not only understand how to operate it, but also when something's going right, gather the correct information, or when something's not going right, gather the right information so that you can help your mechanic or your repair station or your avionics shop with good viable information to help them troubleshoot it. And the more you understand as a pilot, I think it's better. So I'm really glad to be out here tonight. And whoever wants to pick up after me, jump on board.
Welcome, Robin. Thanks for being part of this, and thanks for making the wings credit possible. We're getting more and more hands-on as owners and pilots, and we agree with you fully. Thanks for advocating this. We saw the accident statistics went down. We are, as pilots, I think we all agree that the efforts of the FAA to kind of go into the more kinder, gentler approach seems to be paying off. So we're happy to still be here as pilots, and we want to keep supporting each other. Everybody jump in, any quiet moment, who you are, where you are, and what you fly.
It's Josh Simpson. I just wanted to say that my wife and I put a Garmin 500 in our Cessna 172, and it actually took, the plane was down for the whole year of COVID, but we've flown the new 500 for about 10 or 12 hours, and so far it's really promising, although there are little tweaks, especially if you're not really careful and you don't know where your autopilot or what it's doing. Sometimes it's flying you in some completely different place than you think you're going. And so I've been glad to be VFR so far. But we're thinking about putting one in our Comanche, and that's the next. It seems like a complicated install, but we'll see. That's all I got.
Welcome, Josh, and thanks for being here. It's always interesting when owners who've already put a GFC500 into a different airplane put one into a Comanche. So we'll look forward to your report back. And anybody jump in any quiet moment, welcome to say who you are, where you are, and what you fly.
I'm Michael Saperton. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I live near Deer Valley Airport. I have a 1963 Comanche 250, and I love it. That's my panel back there. I'm dreaming about a GFC 500 in my Comanche someday.
Michael, welcome, and thanks for the help. And I think most of us are dreaming about your panel, autopilot or no autopilot.
It's ancient by modern avionics standards, but it's very nice to have.
Just keep up with that panel porn. Go ahead.
This is Chris Barber. I was going to say that's a beautiful panel. Mine's still got steam gauges all over it and VOR heads, so you know I like it. CJ, I talked to Daryl today at the electronic ignition place down in Texas, and he's willing to well, a couple things. One is that the one we put on our Lycomings, they redesigned the controller unit and they've integrated the manifold pressure into it, and they were able to drop the price, as well as he's also extending our Comanche buy. So I'm ordering the system with the plugs, and he talked me into the one that replaces the mag instead of the crank sensor because of the maintenance issues. But I just want to let everybody know that that is still available as a group buy, and they've dropped the price. So I'm getting this thing for just about $4,000 with the switch, the plugs, and I'm probably forgetting something else. Anyway, it's ready to go.
Chris, that is wonderful news. And that is, and yes, Tim Horton, that is the Electro Air. Sorry, Tim, I always do that to you. That is the Electro Air system. And Chris, thank you for relaying. And if you can connect with me either via the chat window or text afterwards, we'll try to move that forward. And Bob Doris, I saw you come in, and let Daryl Poole know. I actually have a message in to him because we had one install that was really odd and it had some not good elements, and we're trying to get that troubleshot. So we just want to try to connect with him. But on the whole, people have been so happy and like the fuel savings and the increased power and speed. So, and the less maintenance. So great news. And they had told me that they had some cool stuff coming. So I'm super pleased. Thanks a lot, Chris, and welcome.
The price went down was the good news. I don't know what people were paying before, but you know, this is, like I said, with the switch and everything. And I think it's probably going to be one of the best things I do to this engine as I go through it this winter.
We just put the system into our 260B. Say again on the price?
I stepped on you. It used to be, I think it used to be $4,900 or $4,800.
Well, this is $4,000 with our little Comanche deal, and it's the new system with the new, you know, the new stuff. Gosh, maybe this is the only thing I've ever seen lately the price has gone down on. Hey, can we try to get a group buy on the dual exhaust when the gentleman that makes them comes back in August? Anybody up for that?
Yes,
Absolutely.
actually.
And who is doing? Is it PowerFlow? Is it who's doing the dual exhaust?
APP, isn't it? Aircraft.
Yes, and he's got a cowling also. But I was told, I called down there last week, and I was told that he's out. He's a one-man operation, uses the corner of some other business, and he's out till August. He may be at Sonifund, so if you guys run into him,
No.
I plan on getting a set of the exhaust, and maybe we can get a group buy on this thing.
So are you thinking about the Eagle cowl, for the singles that?
Aircraft Performance Products was the dual exhaust cowl combination until Dan Meyer, who made and installed the cowls, passed away. And it was my understanding the cowl is no longer, at least for now, until they get those wheels going again. But the exhaust, I imagine, is still good to go.
That's right. So
Yeah.
Daniel is correct. And there is actually a group of engineers and innovators that are kind of from all over the country that have come together. I mean, as I discovered that there were 4 or 5 people that really wanted to get that Eagle cowl coming again. I've put them together, and we're going to need to finish making that approach because it's a custom fit, that cowling.
Yeah. And I said Dan Myers. It's Bob Meyer, I think.
I think you're right.
I got the name wrong, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, welcome, Chris and Daniel. Since you're talking, jump in and say who you are, where you are, and what you fly. You're stuck.
Hi, Dan Homicide, Kenosha, Wisconsin. I've got a 1960 250, and I don't have an autopilot whatsoever. Well, I've got Century 1, if you want to call it what it is, but maybe down the road, but no time soon. I just sent a deposit to Lycon for a new engine, so that's all consuming, I think, for a while.
Welcome, Daniel. And yeah, the moment you have to put a deposit down on an engine, that's a painful moment, but just think about that 0 time.
Yep, I do a lot. I
Ouch,
wait to open the crate and look at it.
How far out is Lycoming now? We had one made a year ago.
He said it's a solid 6-month turnaround now after they get it. I don't know. I'm sure it's a combination of everything going on with everybody, but that was last week he told me that.
Have you got a wide flange or a narrow flange engine?
It's a narrow deck.
That's good news. You can get cylinders. I've got a narrow deck also, and I've got 12. I've got 6 cylinders at Lycon getting fixed.
Really?
Yeah, wide flanges.
I could not find. Well, the last 2 annuals ago, I had to replace a cylinder. I couldn't find a Lycoming narrow deck. I had to put a Millennium in.
Well, they had 7 at Lycon, and Texas Air has 27. So I bought them from Texas Air, and they didn't mind shipping them to Lycon.
Good.
But
That's
the
good
good
news.
news is you've got a narrow flange engine.
Yeah.
Just a quick question before we go back to our round robin hangar flying. Has anybody had trouble joining or had to join twice? I'm just looking at people getting stuck in the waiting room.
What is your favorite?
It sounds like if nobody's jumped in to say, yes, I've had to join twice. Anyways, welcome everybody and jump into any quiet moment. Say who you are, where you are, and what you fly.
Nick Spellman in the cornfields of Central Illinois, Kilo Alpha, 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 and I fly a beautiful 1959 250.
Hank, it is good to see you. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
It's good to be here.
Better than the alternative, yeah.
By far.
I'm Ray Fay from Madison, Wisconsin. I fly a B model, a 66 B model, which I really enjoy. And glad to be involved with all you folks.
Ray, we're glad to have you here. Thanks for being part of us and welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
We're looking forward to seeing you at ComancheTown. By the way, there's over 55 Comanches registered for ComancheTown at this point. If you need to know how to register for that, just stick a note in the chat window. And as soon as I get a moment, I'll stick a link to register for ComancheTown in the chat window. If you can assemble ahead of time, the 23rd, there is a big group of Comanches that are going to go in together to help establish ComancheTown. So this is just a quick reminder. Please register because the guys in Vintage are trying to work with us to keep the type together while honoring this year's first come first serve because they're expecting record crowds. Welcome back. Enough social distancing. ComancheTown is back. And everybody jump in any quiet moment, say who you are, where you are, and what you fly.
I am Martin from Grand Prairie, Texas, 1965 260B, which has just had its GFC500 installed. And I'm a firm believer in autopilots. I think one of the big mistakes instructors made for years, decades, was never teaching people. People were taught real pilots don't use the autopilot, or you can use it in cruise, but not otherwise. And I think that's been responsible for an awful lot of accidents. In fact, personally, I think that's what happened to Kennedy, JFK, in his Saratoga. So I'm a firm believer in autopilots, but people, you've got to understand how to use them, right? Because more than one person has died by pushing forward on the yoke against the resistance, and it will just trim against you till you can't overcome it. So it's important to understand it. Rant over, sorry.
Martin, I think you've got some people who are like, word, brother, that's right on. So there's some information in this because I got to attend the pre-flight last night, the test flight, and I think you're going to really enjoy this. Welcome back, and thanks for being here. Anybody else jump in, say who you are, where you are, and what you fly. Bill Hicks, welcome.
From Spanish Peaks Airport in Walsenburg, Colorado. I fly a 1965 260.
Bill, it is a pleasure to have you. Thank you for being here.
And hello to Ray.
Hi, Bill. You're looking good.
Thank you.
I'm Terry Lindsay.
Terry, it is a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, in Southern California, I have a 66 260B.
You and Ray, and that beautiful bird right behind you is her, yeah. Well, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Welcome.
Well, I'm still looking at Bill. Anyway, Eric Woods, Washington, D.C. area of a 1960 Comanche 250. I've had it for 3 years. And I've just had the Garmin GNC 355 put in twin G5s. So I think the GNC 500 would make a good addition.
Well, Eric, if that beautiful panel behind you is your airplane, I would agree. That is gorgeous. Welcome, and thanks for being part of us tonight.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Gorgeous. Everybody jump into any quiet moment, say who you are, where you are, and what you fly, and welcome.
DJ Jimmy up for some pits. I fly a 65 260 Comanche. And I see you got stuck in Florida.
Working on getting unstuck, but welcome, Jimmy, and thanks for being here.
Rain on the car.
It's getting poured on. Yep, definitely. Not good to be not flying in this, but I'm happy to be here with you guys.
I'll go on from now. I'm glad to see you doing good, though.
Well, thank you for the work you've been doing to make us all be able to fly with air conditioning, Jimmy. So welcome to
we
tonight.
hope my controls are getting put into dash now. And I should get my plane, he said, by the end of next Friday. And since I'm not used to the autopilot, I'm carrying somebody that's a retired airline pilot up to check it out for me.
You get stuff checked out all sorts of ways, Mr.
Yes,
Jimmy. Welcome, and thanks for being here.
Yeah. So I try to know good people.
You seem to do that pretty well. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you and your Arctic Air CEO, Greg, in a couple of weeks.
I would make reservations for Oshkosh. I know we're going. And we're talking about going in my plane, but, you know, we got to make sure everything's together. And since I hadn't had my plane in so long, I won't make you. You know how things go. You never know. Kind of like getting stuck in Florida. You never know what happens.
I do indeed. And if just everybody who's on the Zoom, we have two pilots who actually have space available to go out to Oshkosh, one in New York and one in the Virginia area. So those right seats are available. People always like to fly share. They love to cost share. And if you are interested, stick a note in the chat window or contact us afterwards and we'll hook you up. If you have a seat available and you'd like some camaraderie or possibly to cost share, register and let us know. And again, we'll try to connect people with each other. And jump into any quiet moments, say who you are, where you are, and what you fly.
Hey, CJ, it's Chris McGough, fly a 64 Piper Comanche 250 based in Southern Utah now.
Ernie James, fly a 65 260, Southern California area.
Chris McGough and Ernie James, welcome and thanks for being here.
Thanks
Hey,
for having us.
CJ. It's Robin and Nick Teslich. We're in California. We have a 1966 Comanche 260B.
Welcome and good to see you both. Thank you. And that's a beautiful bird on in your back screen.
Thank you.
John Futter, based in Orange, Mass, currently in New Bedford, Mass, 1969 through 60C.
John Futter, it is good to have you as always and your beautiful bird. Welcome.
Joe Androwski, 1965 250 in Mounicou, Wisconsin, kind of a neighbor of Ray Fay.
Joe, welcome. And we're going to see you in about a couple of weeks at ComancheTown at Oshkosh.
Well, we won't have the airplane there, but we'll be there.
You know what? We will make extra chair space and tent space available, and we're working on a giant dinner. So stay tuned. Welcome and thanks for being here.
If you ride a tram, you'll probably find me driving and my wife as conductor.
Ah, we will look for you, Joe. Thank you, and thanks for volunteering at AirVenture. Good to have you here.
This is Nima Fallon with A&J Aviation out of Springdale, Arkansas.
Nima, you are one of the people that made the magic happen.
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome and thanks for being here with us, and thanks for making the magic.
Thank you.
And everybody welcome. Jump in any quiet moment, say who you are, where you are, and what you fly.
Mike Newman, Comanche 250, 1959, based in Western Pennsylvania.
Mike
we miss you
Newman.
at Lock Haven. We miss you at Lock Haven this year, CJ.
Yeah, we are going to be rescheduling Lock Haven because we had people from, gosh, I heard that morning from people in Virginia, in New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and then me in Vermont, all trying to get there. And there was this little pocket right in Pennsylvania area, where in Western New York, where people could go and bring their airplanes home to see mom. So for all of you who don't know, the museum, the Piper Museum in Lock Haven, has a serial number 1 renovated by Norm and Peg Johnson. And they said, come back to Lock Haven. They will bring 2024 Pop serial number 1 out, and we will have a Comanche party with our founding Comanche. So we will be figuring out when to do that, and stay tuned. But in the meanwhile, if you haven't, it's almost starting time. And so I just wanted to take a moment to say ComancheTown is happening. Enough social distancing. We are back. If you want to, well, first of all, this is eligible for Wings credit. And there is a note posted in the chat window. And this is thanks to Rob Leonard of the Bradley Fisdo, the Fast Team Program Manager, who is here with us tonight. And as you all may know, the FAA really looked at autopilots as a key piece of safety equipment and made them part of the initial North Sea program to help bring cool avionics over into the general aviation area. They then moved that into a separate program, and this great equipment is coming over. In fact, our angle of attack Comanche Zoom coming up, that was part of that program of, really great safety equipment coming over to the general aviation area. But Rob, as the FAF team program manager, was able to, to look at this ahead of time and spend the time to do that and make this available for Wings credit. If you register for Wings credit and you tell your insurance company that you have participated in the Wings program, many will give you a discount on your insurance. In addition, if you have certain insurance companies and you have both an IFR GPS and a moving map, and that would mean something like the Garmin 650 would qualify as both, and you have a 2-axis autopilot with altitude hold, some insurance companies will also give you a discount, recognizing the increased safety of having an autopilot and an IFR capable GPS. And yes, and so, Rob, do you want to jump in a little bit and give us an overview of the Wings program?
Yes, I'd be glad to, CJ. Thanks. I'm going to present my screen if it's all right.
Please.
And can everybody see that? You got the screen?
Yes, we do. We see it.
Okay, good. So anyway, Wings program is a means by which, you know, pilots can keep track and set goals for themselves as far as their maintaining proficiency in their training, both technically speaking, by looking at attending seminars like this, as well as actually doing proficiency checks or flight checks. And I'd just like to discuss this program briefly with you for a couple of minutes and just go over it and just sort of maybe help you understand it a little bit better. So there's different levels of wings that are available. You've got your basic, your advanced, and master. And obviously, as you invest more time and effort in your training and your proficiency, the higher the level you're able to achieve. It's pretty easy to join Wings. Simply, you first create an account on FAAsafety.gov. The web page looks like this. I know it's real small for you to see it, but just to give you a little familiarization. And then next you complete a pilot profile, which talks about your level of experience, your level of certification, whether you're, you know, just whether you're just a private pilot or a certified flight instructor or whatever rating you are, you enter that data in there. And then finally, you attend a wing seminar such as this event here, or take a wings flight, and you build up your training record in that fashion. You can register, pre-register for credit on FAAsafety.gov, and you can do that via the sign-in sheet at the seminar door or this seminar here, as CJ has instructed you. We need your email, your FAAsafety.gov email, to be able to give you credit for tonight's session or any wing session. You'll need to request credit for each flight activity that you enter into it. Typically your CFI would be the one who would approve it and give you credit for each flight activity that you do. And this is just an example what it looks like on the page. And normally, again, CFIs validate this flight credit. It can be done also by an aviation safety inspector or a flight FAA safety program manager such as myself. Another thing that's available to you is we have what they call Wings Pros. And Wing Pros are guys that really understand the Wings program and how to enter this data, and they're willing to volunteer their time to help you learn and understand how to do it. This page depicts on how to find a Wings Pro in your geographic area. So you go on to the FAAsafety.gov and you click on the resources tab up here. And then you go down and you'll see that all the different geographic areas are available, and you select your area. And then you type you put in here by published name up here, and then you click search. And what will pop up is the Wings Pro in your area, down in this area here, and it's a link to her contact or their contact information. This happens to be Heather Mitzler, who's down in the Southwest 11 Little Rock region. And she is willing to lend a hand on how to enter this data into FAAsafety.gov. So question, so why Wings? Why is the FAA pushing Wings? And the reason is that we just want to increase safety, want to increase your safe operation of the aircraft. And we know that proficiency is key to success in almost everything worth doing, right? Especially flying. Proficient pilots are confident and they're capable and they're safe pilots. And Wings is a proficiency training system specifically designed for GA aviation pilots like you. And your regular participation will keep you on top of your flying game. And I think this next slide says it best. By the way, Wings participation also means chances to win cash. Yes, money. The Wings Industry Advisory Committee is a coalition of fast team industry partners and devoted individuals committed to increasing awareness and participation in the Wings program. And they believe in Wings enough to offer chances to win cash prizes for completion or validation of Wings phases. There's basically a number of things that compose of a phase. And once you meet that level of phase, then you are entered in. You can enter in the raffle for in the competition for getting this, getting the cash awards. The sweepstake was generously funded by Paul Berger, and he was a longtime advocate for GA safety, and he's a retired aviator, and he believes participation in this program saves lives. Here is the website right here. I'm not sure on Zoom how to take a screenshot, but you may take a screenshot of this, and that will give you the link that's available for it. So after you've completed a phase of Wings, you can enter the sweepstakes by clicking on the Claim Rewards in the Wings at a Glance section of your My Wings page. You select Wings Sweepstakes, or you can go directly to their website. So there's basically, looks like there's 10 prizes. There's 4 $1,500 prizes, 4 $750 prizes, 2 $500 winners. Last year we had a $1,500 awardee won it here in New England, and also a $750 winner up here in New England. Hey, gives you an opportunity to put more money into your flight training, or maybe pick up put some money towards one of these devices, such as the GFC500 that we're talking about tonight. I know that $1,500 is sort of a drop in the bucket for what that costs, but and I've been out of aviation as far as installing avionics, but that was my job before I came to the FAA about 8 years ago. Autopilots is one of the most expensive things that you can spend your money on. There's nothing like the feeling when you know you're playing your A game. And in order to do that, you need good coaching. So fly regularly with a CFI who will challenge you to review what you know, explore new horizons, and to always do your best. Of course, you'll have to dedicate time and money to your proficiency program, but it's well worth it for the peace of mind that comes with confidence. Vince Lombardi, the famous football coach, said, "Practice does not make perfect. Only perfect practice makes perfect." For a pilot, that means flying with precision, on course, on altitude, and on speed all the time. And be sure to document your achievements in the Wings Proficiency program. It's a great way to stay on top of your game and keep your flight review current. So if anybody's got any questions, I'd be glad to field them about the Wings program right now. I'm an airworthiness inspector, so I personally have not used Wings. I'm more on the aviation maintenance technician side of this FAAsafety.gov. And if nobody's got any questions, I think that we can move on ahead to the next portion of our seminar tonight.
Rob, thank you so much. We're actually hoping to have one of your Wings experts come in and take us through it. And we've got a proposed Comanche specific syllabus that we want to put together with some of the Wings programs. And I think that'll be great because we have specific problems, problem areas that we can address. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making this available as Wings credit. And if nobody has any questions for Rob, I'm going to introduce Sonny and his team and have him take it away. Okay, Sonny.
Yes.
You have done quite the amazing thing. So there you guys are after many, many hours and days of arduous labor, getting to the look ma no hands phase of flying.
Yeah.
I am, with no further ado, I am just going to turn it over to you because, you know, I think what you've done speaks for itself.
Awesome. Can you guys see my screen?
Perfect.
All right, excellent. So thank you everybody for joining. CJ was great and introduced me. My name is Sonny Mounicou. I'm the owner of the Comanche behind us. And I had the opportunity to document the install of the GFC500 in my plane. So Jeff, next to me from A&J Aviation, and John from Sentinel worked diligently to get it installed. I passed wrenches, took pictures, and drove Jeff crazy with configuration options. So I am super technical. I know lots of details about it, but these guys are the experts. And as we, at the end of the presentation, we'll actually look inside the back of the plane, and you can even see the incredible job of mounting, and even the wiring is pretty incredible that Jeff slaved over tables to do. So we'll go through all of it, but just do know that upright up front. You need a Garmin dealer to install it. Jeff is my Garmin dealer, and he did an incredible job with this. So please hang on through the presentation, and I think you'll enjoy what we find. All right. So just starting off, you really need to start off with an overview of the plane, because the GFC500 changes a little bit depending on which plane you install it in, what's involved. So that's this plane, the one that you also see behind us. Ignore the fat guy standing on the wing. It is a 1965-260. I do have both the rudder service kit and the little bullet weights on the tail installed on my plane. That's important, because depending on which one you have, there are different configuration options that you need to go through. And it also speaks to some complications that you might get into as you do the installation yourself. My plane had no existing autopilot at all, so it was truly a blank slate, which made it nice. And in my plane, we had dual G5s installed, which we actually did in preparation for this. So it had been done at a previous date last year. A 650XI and a GMA 350C installed. There are a few other items too, but that's the Garmin stack that integrates with the GFC500. So the options. So when you go and you order this, when you talk to your dealer, there are three options. The base is the GFC500 2-axis kit. It includes the GMC 507 head unit that you see, and that's basically you get pitch and roll with that basic kit. Beyond that, you have options of adding the pitch trim kit, the yaw dampener kit, or you can actually add both. They are independent of one another, but naturally it adds complexity. But these are the three options that you need to debate on as you actually place the install. I'll show a video a little bit later where you can actually see the merits of having each one, and you can actually see them operating in the plane. And then if we have the opportunity, we'll certainly show you them operating inside my plane as a ground test sitting here. So just some general guidance, and bear with me, I need to hide the video so I can see my slide. Some general guidance. These are just kind of guidelines no matter what you're doing. Read the Garmin notes page twice before beginning the install, and reread it before each step. There are plenty of chevron notes buried on the install pages that are not obvious. You'll see a little chevron, and you'll go back to the notes page, and then it will all become clear. But it is absolutely critical to do that. You will, there's lots of guidance that you need to follow, and it's very easy to make a mistake if you don't do that. And that may be par for the course with a Garmin install with a GFC500.
Dealer needs to do the install.
Yeah. So it's just very good to look at those, to understand them, and I'll speak a little bit more about that later. When you're ordering with your dealer, it's important to note that whether you have a ram horn yoke or a standard yoke, it changes the additional items that you get. So one thing that was interesting that I found is that the base GFC500 includes just a normal kind of momentary toggle switch for the electric trim. And I didn't want that. I actually wanted the Signet switch. And then on top of that, whether you have you have to get a mount. So whether you get the ram horn or whether you have a standard yoke, you have to get the mount and the switch. So in here, and you'll be able to review it later, if you were to have a ram horn yoke and you wanted to get the Signet switch, you would order 11701472-01 for that Signet trim switch. And if you were gonna have a standard yoke, you would follow those order numbers for the bottom. I say this because it does add quite a bit of additional cost to get those Signet switches and to get those hats. If you're getting the standard one, you can actually manufacture the bracket yourself, but you can use a standard switch that comes with it if you wanted to go with a lower cost option. So there are some choices in there that you can make. Avoid delays by ensuring that all of the hardware that is not included is on hand. I was kind of caught off guard by this. Jeff wasn't, but I was, in that it didn't have a lot of the bolts and rivets and things that we thought would have just been included. And so we wound up having to place some orders because I was pushing Jeff to get it installed quicker. But nonetheless, make sure that you have it. And if you look on the Facebook group, you'll see 2 or 3 others ran into exactly this not that long ago. And so it's delaying their install. One other note, double check previous install terminations. The maintenance manual does include a procedure check to use if you experience CAN bus errors. This is really important just because it can delay or cause issues. You want to make sure your CAN bus is good. This is true if you're just doing G5s or anything else, but in the case of this, there are some ramifications if there are errors. Double check all your pins before powering up. I know this sounds like a no-brainer, but it's worth mentioning just because it's a good safety check. Jeff did that with all of these. It's really important that we do that. You don't want to smoke servos or any of the other parts. And then ensure that there are no errors are present on your G5s or on your head units on the CAN bus before you update your servos. So a normal servo update takes about maybe 15 minutes or so if there are no errors on the CAN bus. If there are any kind of reflections on the CAN bus, it can take up to 2 hours to update a servo. And when you think about 4 servos in a plane like this, you could blow pretty much an entire day just updating servos if there are any errors. So it's just a gotcha, something that I found important as we went through it. And I'll just do a pause. There's some rain in the background. CJ, can you still hear me okay?
We can hear you great.
Okay, perfect. I'm noisy, so I am not surprised. All right, so let's jump into the 2-axis kit. So this is the baseline that you would install. And so on the left, you can actually see the bracket that goes in the Comanche for the pitch. That one right there, the reason why I got a picture without the servos in it is because the yaw actually goes on top of that, and I'll speak to it in just a minute. But you can see that that bracket right there literally slides into place. And that's, it literally slides right into place. You almost can't fit it any other way, although I'm sure some people might figure out a way, but it really mounts up very well. You can see it goes right behind where my voltage regulator is. And the most awkward part about it is actually sitting in the back, and I'll speak to that in just a minute. On the right-hand side, you can see the roll servo. So the roll servo goes under the pilot, not where the access panel is. Unfortunately, it's actually a little bit over, but it goes right under the pilot's feet. So some lessons learned on the 2-axis kit. With the pitch, you'll be doing a significant amount of work in an awkward position in the tail of the airplane. That's kind of an understatement. If you had seen these guys' arms and whatnot, and then, you know, just blood dripping down their arms from sitting back there, it's very awkward. And while the tail is big enough, it's challenging. So we found that foam pads help. So there are about these 2-inch foam pads that John and Jeff keep around, and by chopping those up and leaning on them, it actually made it a lot more bearable for longer periods of time. The most interesting thing about it, about the install of the pitch, and actually this affects the yaw as well, is that there are rub strip cable guards that are difficult to install. So I say this because if you install them on the cables before you put everything else in, then you have to assemble it in the tail. And assembling all of the components, it's complicated to do it while in the tail. If you do it outside of the tail, then when you put it in, you've got to actually put those 4 rivets in to do it, and bucking bars won't fit very well after it's installed. So it's just one of those challenging things that we ran into. You actually run into the exact same thing with the yaw and with the pitch. Those are the only places where they have those rub strip cable guards. For the roll servo, the pilot side floor must be removed. You can't get to it through that access panel that's there. It's only 2 brackets that you have to install, but those do go not station to station, but what is it, rib to rib? They go rib to rib. And the bracket itself that mounts to the U channel on the bottom has a very, it's very specific on the amount of clearance that bracket needs between the two control cables that are around it. And if you read the notes page, you see exactly what that tolerance is, but it's more important to get the tolerance right than it is to get the bracket lined up evenly with the U channel. So just you know, to keep that in mind. In my case, we installed this at one end of the CAN bus. So it goes from a G5, the attitude indicator, over to the roll servo, and that made for a good natural terminating spot for that CAN bus. Anything you guys would add to the 2 axes?
Yeah, you did very well. You paid a lot of attention.
All right, so let's jump to the pitch trim. So on the pitch trim, I've got 4 pictures of the pitch trim that you'll see. On the left, you can actually see the pitch trim looking through the tail of the airplane. So it's from the luggage compartment area. You can actually see in that we have a set of vice grips and also a mirror, so we could see how we were aligning it. And you can also see some of the nice cable routing that is there before we truly cleaned it all up. On the right-hand side, you can see that pitch trim bracket, and you can see it's got a, we called it a shark fin, which actually goes over to right by the access panel. And you don't know me, but I'm actually talking with my hands under the table. So then the left picture here is what you see on the other side of that pitch trim servo. So you can see it's got that large cable. It has that idler that is on top, and you can see it running forward. You can also see maybe that there's not a lot of clearance between that and the stabilator weight that I'll talk about in just a second. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the trim drum after it has the new cable wrapped around it that Garmin does provide. So the lessons learned with the pitch trim, we used a piece of safety wire wrapped around basically a tail weight stand, but it had a post coming out. And we used that to connect to both of the front portions of the cable, both of the turnbuckles. This made it really easy for a couple of reasons. Number one, we did not have to redo anything with the front portion of the cable. We were able to keep it all intact the way that it was because we kept tension on it. Number two, it actually allowed us to spin it, and we were able to get to the different turnbuckles a little bit easier because we could spin it forward or spin it back as we were trying to do different things on the plane. So that was a huge win for us to be able to use that cable. It saved us, I think, a lot of time. Be very careful to count the wraps after the spool is installed in the drum holder. I say this because when I was standing there with John and I inserted the drum, I accidentally unwrapped half a turn when I handed it back to John. And so we were both looking at it. And when we installed it, we realized the error. We could actually see the error. It was my fault. But it's one of those where it's important to look at when you're doing it and realize that they tell you how many counts above and beyond, how many wraps around. You can actually see when it has the right spacing. Just make sure that you do it after you install it instead of before. Your stabilator bolts will likely need to be reversed. I'm at least the second person that I know that had to flip them around to the other side. It's not a huge deal. It probably was the quickest part of the entire pitch trim install. And then the servo payoff angle, and that's what Garmin calls it, is difficult to line up with the ±3 degree guidance. So that idler pulley has to be, you've got ±3 degrees, and you've got lots of axes of motion where that bracket mounts in a awkward place in the plane. And quite honestly, this is one where it took more than one person to do it just to make sure everything was aligned perfectly. The pitch cable is super long, and so it has lots of opportunity to sort of flex out of that 3 degrees if you're not watching it, whereas some of the others are shorter. And so the pitch trim is the one you really have to worry about that with most of all. And nonetheless, we were able to do it, but it does take more than one person to get it right. And anything you guys would add?
No, you hit the nail on the head.
All right, next, the yaw damper. So this particular one is interesting because it winds up being literally a almost like an L bracket that sits on top of the pitch. So of all of the servos, this particular one was probably the easiest to install. And it probably, because we were already working on the pitch trim, it probably only took us another 2 hours or so to actually put the bracket on. It literally has those 2 screws on the bottom with the 3 on top. It requires alignment, which is why it did take the time that it took. But nonetheless, that is it was actually a pretty easy install in general for that bracket. If you look carefully in this picture, you can see the cables and you can see the cable guards, and you can see exactly what I was talking about as far as it being kind of difficult because it's an extension of that pulley, if you will. And you can see if you look by the clecos, you would see one of the Derlin pieces installed. So on the yaw damper, I won't talk much about it. It's actually the easiest of the 4 servos to install. It's really a simple add-on bracket to the pitch servo. And I'll show you why it actually makes a difference in just a few moments. Anything you guys would add to the yaw?
No.
All right. So now I'm going to turn it over to John to talk about the installation timeline. So just as a precursor, right? I know a lot of you follow the install in Facebook, and a lot of you saw lots of pictures, maybe some in horror with the amount of time it took, or maybe you were excited about the duration. But nonetheless, this is what it actually took us to do the install this time on the plane. I'll pause for a second. Do you guys, can you guys hear me still?
Yes, we have. You're just fine.
All right, perfect. John?
All right, as far as the installation time, day one, the plane disassembly and the organization of the parts that come out of the box. I was there with Jeff. We just disassembled everything, laid it all out on the table, inventoried everything off the checklist to make sure we have everything ready to go. That's a good way to spend day one. Just organization, make sure it's all there, get familiar with the installation
and the parts,
the documents, everything that comes with it. The pitch trim installation, that was the challenging part as far as an airframe mechanic or an A&P. It does take a couple people. You have to have eyes everywhere. Again, measure.
Alignment's critical.
Alignment is critical. Clamp it, pleco it, whatever you've got to do. Measure 3 times, cut once before you drill a hole. And then it just all comes together like butter after that. Follow the manual, follow the manual, follow the manual. What do we have as day 4 and 5?
Pitch and yaw.
Pitch and yaw.
Power servo and yoke.
All right, yeah, the pitch and yaw. That was the uncomfortable 8 hours I spent in the baggage compartment of this wonderful airplane. That honestly was probably the most challenging part. Like Sonny said previously, it does fit like it's supposed to, like it's made for where it goes. The most difficult part is not leaning on something that you're not supposed to lean on. Just pay attention to what you're doing. Take your time. As far as, I don't know if I'm going to say mechanically, but it was not quite as challenging as the pitch trim. Day 6, we got power servo and yoke wiring. That's Jeff. Go ahead.
The wirings, I do everything on the table. We do it on the bench and then install it in the plane after it's done. It's time consuming. We lace cord everything. We don't like using zip ties. It went pretty well. The most challenging is, on your floorboards, even on the roll servo and on the wire routing, you know, if you have some of these Comanches have rivets, so you know there's some unknowns. This one didn't.
Yes.
So it went pretty smoothly. As far as that goes, it's a good 8 to 10 hours. Roll servo, we did that together, John. That was probably the simplest servo to do.
Yeah, it's interesting when you get it in there. You install the bracket between a bunch of cables that are running there.
Yeah.
So that's the critical part
Yeah.
that Sonny mentioned, and you know, you just make sure you've got the distance between that gusset that comes up in between your control cables equal on both sides. It's in the notes. It's plain and simple. Don't go with your gut to make everything nice and square with that stringer. You know, just follow the directions, make your measurements. That's what Jeff guided with. It's you know, don't look at the physical aspect. Make sure the distance between the cable and the bracket is there, and we nailed it on.
And guys, I just want to say this. You know, this is we're giving an overview of Sonny's take on the install. This is really a Garmin dealer install. It's not you can go purchase it and do it yourself. And I'm sure you all know that, but there's a lot of critical parts that go into this. So, and John, I'll let you go back with the bridle cables.
Yeah, we got to assist out there. You guys can see the construction on this hanger. This is A&J's Manila edition.
Yeah.
So that's why I got to assist on this, just as an extra A&P to help out with the install. But anyway, on the bridle cables aren't bad. To get the tensions on them is fairly straightforward. It's just like any other bridle cable on other stuff that I've worked on. But they give you clear directions. You connect one on one side, hold the tension, check it, get them snug, and it seemed to fall right in place. Every bridle went together. I bet you we spent maybe an hour to an hour and a half on each bridle, getting it right, securing it, then torquing everything. Again, the pitch, being in that hole, trying to hold everything, torque it with a torque wrench and a wrench on elbows. It was
stuff.
Physically challenging.
Yeah,
Yes, that was
physically
the best part. For something so simple, 8 little nuts and bolts. That was where we bled. Then we get to the servo updates, which is going to be these guys.
So, you know, on your configuring and the ground test, you know, that's very important. We always do a power and ground. Most shops do the same thing. Do that before putting anything in or powering it live. And then, like Sonny was saying, we went in and checked the G5s, made sure there's no errors, and then hooked servos up one at a time. They all had to update. You know, I do want to stress, you know, the knowing about the elevator and knowing if you have the new mods for it is really important to the dealer. It's part of the configuring process. And I'm sure y'all talk to whoever, us or whoever, whatever Garmin dealer you go to. But it is a very important process. The updates went very smoothly. Ground testing went smoothly. We're firm about doing a lot of, and this kind of goes on the safety side, making sure the pilot's up to date with how it works before we go out and fly it. Sonny was one of the guys that actually read the book. Doesn't happen very often.
Made his own checklist.
So it went pretty smoothly. Test flight was beautiful.
And you'll see the video in just a moment.
And you'll see a video. I actually jumped in my 182, put a GoPro on it, and had them follow me doing maneuvers, and it went very well.
All right.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Day 10 is tidy up. I mean,
Yeah, tidy up and go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll see the video, and I do want to stress the video that you see, it is literally the first test of the autopilot. There were no squawks. It went in and it was flawless. We did a mechanical flight test first, just to make sure the plane was airworthy or the plane was good, and then we turned around and we did the test. the flight test, and I'll show you that in just a moment. One thing that I do want to mention to you guys, and this is really critical, some of you have seen my video, some of you haven't seen my video yet. You'll see it in just a moment. But a lot of people don't know that you get an incredible amount of data out of the G5s and out of the Garmin system. And so if you have G5s in your system, or you have the 275 or the G3X Touch, make sure that it's logging the data. So in this example, I quite literally took the SD card out of my G5 and out of my attitude indicator, my top G5, put it into my computer and uploaded the CSV file to Garmin. So this is literally a screenshot from Garmin's website. And here, what's really neat about it, and there are over 100 metrics that you can look at, but just in this one, I can see if you look on the left, you can see it's graphing the pitch of the various turns. I get a pretty little map with different, coloring on it. And you can see here that the commanded autopilot pitch, the flight director pitch, the pitch of the airplane, the commanded roll, all of the details around it you actually get. And if you look on the top right, you can see almost exactly what my G5s looked like when I was flying the plane. So, this can be used for so much. This can be used by your Garmin dealer to troubleshoot. It can be used by your A&P to see that you're not having alternator problems because it logs the voltage, right? There are so many uses for it that it's just not even funny. I can see the magnetic deviation that I get to. So we'll share the video in just a second where I use this data, but this was our flight path. This was our test. It's not as pretty as Owen Catherwood's, but I like it. It worked for us.
And Sonny, just a quick moment to jump in. This is CJ.
Yes.
Depending on what type of device you're watching this on and joining this with, you may find that Sonny's plane and his team are pegged to, for example, the top right, covering up, for example, the G5 views. You can touch that and drag it down and it will stick itself to wherever you drag it to. The bottom screens that are on like an iPad or an iPhone or an Android, you can zoom in on this. So as it goes, able to zoom in on particular areas. If like me, you're watching it from a fairly small screen, because there is a ton of information. Sonny, go ahead.
All right, excellent. And just to check, you can still hear me, right?
Yes. Yep.
All right. Awesome. The rain is picking up, so somebody chime in if it becomes a problem. 1 second.
Go ahead and mute your second computer, Sonny.
Yep, I am.
Okay, good.
1 second. There we go. Okay. All right. So this slide is important. So this is safety. So with the autopilot comes a lot of extra features. It comes with a lot of extra stuff. But you need to be safe when you do it. And I know Rob's going to talk about that at the end of my presentation here, but a few things I do want to cover with you. You have to have the G5, G3X, or GI275 AFMS available with you when you fly it. And when you look at the G500 AFMS, and this is a screenshot directly from the Garmin website for pilots, you can see, and I'll read these very briefly, but they're important. You have to have a pilot seated in the left pilot seat and with a seatbelt fastened during all autopilot operations. You cannot climb in the back of your plane and take a nap.
Good point,
cannot. I'm sorry?
I said excellent point, Sonny.
I actually drive a Tesla, and I see all the people that actually do that with Tesla cars, and I just imagine them doing it with a plane, and no, anyway. Do not use an autopilot or the yaw damper during takeoff and landing. As you may or may not know, the autopilot and the yaw damper can operate independently. So you can hand fly the airplane with the yaw damper on, or you can use the autopilot without the yaw damper. The restriction is you can't use either during takeoff or landing, and there are some altitude limitations that you can see at the bottom. I'll read. The pre-flight test must complete successfully prior to use of the autopilot or flight director. period. That's an important one. This one was an interesting one. I haven't seen it called out too many places, but it's a good reminder for everybody on the call. The maximum fuel imbalance with the autopilot engaged is 15 gallons. It's actually pretty easy to get to with a Comanche with 4 or 6 tanks, I'm sure. One thing that's important, and this comes back to what I talked about in the very beginning, around depending on which modifications you have, it changes certain things. So if you've got the rudder modifications and the stabilator modifications, then your maximum engagement speed is 215 miles an hour. If you have no modifications, your maximum engagement speed is 176. So it varies depending on what you have installed in the plane. And then your minimum engagement speed is 82 miles an hour for those that haven't seen it here. Your autopilot must be disengaged below 200 feet during approach operations. It must be disengaged below 800 feet for all other operations. And the 500 is approved for Category 1 precision and non-precision approaches only. All of these things are extremely important. When we look at the speeds, your Garmin dealer will actually configure your GFC500 for the appropriate speeds for your airplane. And so depending on which modification you have, so for instance in mine, because my VNE is 227, Garmin's advice or their recommendation or their guidance is that the maximum overspeed protection is set at 228. And so it has overspeed and underspeed protection. The underspeed obviously will start kicking in with the appropriate guidance. You've got pitch and roll guidance that it also applies when you're talking about the envelope safety protection. And that is something that Rob will talk about at the end. So I don't want to steal his thunder. I'll keep moving. All right, so the first test flight is here. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second, and then I'm going to share again. So bear with me for just a moment, and then I'm going to voice over the video.
While Sonny's setting that up, I'd like to just say A&J Aviation, you guys, having the pilot or the aircraft owner briefed on how to do, how to operate the system is so important. And I just want to acknowledge what you guys do there.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
All right. So with this video, I'm gonna click play. Can you guys see the video?
We don't yet.
It should be a black screen.
It is a black screen, yes.
Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay. So just as a precursor, what I'm going to do is after the intro video, I'm going to pause it for a second and explain to you what you see on the screen. So so bear with me for a moment. So this is what Jeff talked about. This is actually the Comanche flying under his 180 view, right at the test. This was in our test flight. And so what I do here, and so I'll speak to it, just walking around the screen, and this will be the same for all. So at the bottom, when I change to a new mode, like a GFC500, the level mode, the first thing we tested is level mode. So I pop up in the text at the bottom what mode we're about to test. Walking around from the top left and all the way around, and I'm going to speak fast, guys.
Hey, Sonny?
Yes.
Sonny, just for a second. Yeah. I didn't see any video. I heard your voice and I heard the audio from the video, but I did not see a video on my screen. Now, I may be the only one that's not seeing it, but anybody else? Did everybody else see the video?
Are you in a speaker? Are you in the speaker side by side speaker view?
Yes.
You have, and you don't see the video.
No, I see the black screen, but I don't see the video.
Right, use standard. It works for me.
Yeah, use standard.
Okay.
Yeah, I used standard and it worked for me too.
All right, thank you guys. Yep.
All right, so most folks can see it?
I believe everybody can see it now, yes.
All right, cool.
Really,
All right, so
really clear.
I'm sorry? All right.
And I
Video was really
share that experience.
I can't hear CJ too well, Michael. Are we good to go?
We're good to go. Just
Okay.
go ahead. And I think
All right.
TJ is going to mention that if you want to look at certain things, the iPhone, iPhone, Android, and iPad folks can move the speaker view out of the way, or move the thumbnail of the speaker out of the way and zoom around on the video.
I can see it now, but couldn't before. Correct. And to move this line to look closely at, just touch it with your fingertip and drag it to some other part of the screen. And the edges of the corners of your screen act like little, they'll grab the speaker view and narc it down to the and
You're breaking up for
to get a closer view of stuff.
We're good, CJ. Thanks.
All right. So I'll jump in. So walking around from the top left and over, right? So at the very top left, you'll see a track map. It mirrors what you actually saw on the G5 data screen. It just follows the plane and it's literally just a GPS map. The cross that you see is actually the roll and the pitch of the plane. So obviously roll is left to right, pitch is up and down. The numbers in yellow or green represent the value that's there. So you can actually see what the plane is doing and how consistently it's holding the roll or the pitch as it does these operations. At the very top, you'll see the compass, of course. And above that, when I am in heading mode, you'll see green text. Oh, sorry, hang on. Okay, on top of that, you'll see a green text, which if I engage heading mode, which tells you which bearing I'm going towards. On the top right, you'll see the mode that the autopilot is in. So when I look at my G5s, I see a set of modes that are there. You can see it from the manual, but this reflects which modes you see. The number 3000 on there is the altitude, what the altitude select is set to. In this case, it's set to 3000. That will illuminate whether I have it in altitude mode or not. Then both to the right of that, or below that, sorry, is the altitude tape. So there you can actually see the altitude that the plane is at. Immediately under that, you can actually see the torque values of each of the servos. So you'll see roll, pitch, trim, and yaw, and in certain cases, you'll see it move. That is reported in a %. So theoretically, if the yaw damper wasn't being used, it would always be 0 throughout the flight, and so on and so forth with the other servos. And the other thing I'll mention about that is when we did this flight, we had about a 43 mile an hour wind at 3,000 feet. It was pretty gusty. Then at the bottom, like I said, you have the level mode. At the bottom left, you've got the vertical speed that the plane is achieving. And then right behind that, you'll see the green, which is, if it's set to vertical speed mode, it illuminates what it's set to. And then up, you see the speed tape. And above the speed tape, you'll see the IAS speed if it's set on the plane. So without further ado, I will jump into it. There is no audio other than me talking here. So you get to enjoy my voice. All right, and there is the exclamation when we push level mode. You can see APYD, LVL, and LVL at the top. It is leveling itself, and you can actually see it holding it fairly well, holding the plane fairly well. So that was the blue button test. That's the button that my wife will push if I have a problem when I'm flying the plane. I've already taught her about that button. So, and so that's it for the level test. This next one is the nav and altitude mode. So at this point, the autopilot's engaged and the altitude is set to 3,000 feet. And you can see the variance of in the yellow, you can see that it's basically going plus or minus about 15 feet at the most, which I actually would consider to be incredible. That's arguably better than I can hand fly it, given my hours in an airplane. So at this point, what you'll see is I'm lowering the power in the plane because I wanted to do my tests at a lower speed. And what's very interesting is in just a second, you'll actually see the plane command the pitch trim to turn in order to maintain the altitude that I'm set at. And you'll see it in just a minute. I'm probably ahead of it just a little bit. And in a moment, we'll also click the nav button. You can see I'm still in altitude hold. mode. Now you see GPS illuminated at the top right, and now you'll see the plane start to pitch for the right. You'll also see me with my left hand hovering very closely to that autopilot disconnect button in case something errant happened with it, but it didn't. It actually worked extremely well. Now you can see the pitch trim turning as it needed to trim out as we do the turn. The yaw damper is engaged at this point. You can see it's about 27, 28% torque at this point one way. You can also see it, obviously it was applying trim torque as it spun that trim. So it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. You can see, obviously, I'm turning bearing. You can see the roll rate or the roll is about 20. I think that's 20 degrees. I would have to double check with the G5's log. But as we approach the line, right, the line on the GPS, you can see that it begins to roll out. You can see it now adjusting my pitch trim. And now you can see it sort of straightening out and settling itself. And so we're just about ready to move on to the next one. This one is heading mode. So here, it's a pretty quick one. I hit the heading button. It was already set to 52 or 53. You can see the green 53 illuminated at the top. You can see my roll rate is varying, but as I approach 55, it's actually going back, and that was it. It was super quick. This is a test of indicated airspeed. Now, I should mention that so the GFC500 is fairly smart in that when you're getting close to the range that you want to be at, it won't be as aggressive, if you will. So as you approach the altitude you're trying to go to, it will actually slow down, or I should say it should speed up your IAS because you're naturally approaching the altitude that you want to be at. In this particular case, you can see at the top right, it's got IAS with Alt-S in parentheses. That means that the indicated airspeed mode is active and the altitude select mode is armed. And the G5s know you've got two modes. You've got the active mode and the armed mode, and you can use that very much to your advantage in many cases, and you will as you look at doing approaches. But in this case, we've got it set to 3,500. We realized, just given the atmospheric conditions, it was going to take a little while to get to 3,500, and we wanted to do other tests. So you can actually see me spinning it down to 3,300 right now. You'll see the IAS is set to 122, although the plane is doing 130 because it's fairly close to that altitude. And yeah, fairly close to the altitude that it's going to level out at. You can see it's at 3240. As it hits 3250, you'll watch it change to altitude mode. And there it just flipped to altitude mode, and it will use altitude mode for the rest of its approach to get to 3,300. Again, you can see the yaw torque depending on where I am at the moment. I think we're heading south, and therefore it was using quite a bit. And so in a moment, we'll flip to the next one, but you can see it actually settled at 3,300 feet, which was the commanded altitude for the plane to go to. And at this moment, I'm in roll mode. And then the last test that we have here is the vertical speed mode. So a lot of folks will use the indicated airspeed mode for ascents and climbs. A lot of people will probably use the vertical speed mode for descents. So you can see I push the button. You can see it's commanded to go down at 500 feet per minute. You can see it is increasing its descent. It was windy, so it was a little bouncing around just a little bit, but you can see it adjusting the pitch to maintain what it needs to, and you can see vertical speed mode working properly. In fact, you can look at the pitch torque, which is interesting because you can see it applying pitch torque down as it commands the servos appropriately. And this one's the last video, or the last segment, and then I'll flip back to the presentation and continue that. You can also see the vertical speed mode at the top. It's the same thing I talked about before. It's the altitude. As it approaches it, it will flip to altitude mode, and actually it just did. So it's in roll mode with altitude. You can see for most of these, the yaw damper was engaged throughout this particular flight. I have muted this just because although I'll just say I had some choice wording as I was super excited that it was working, and therefore I muted it. I'll have another video later that has more. I'm going to stop the video and go back to the slides. Not yet. All right, so bear with me. I am. There we go. All right, so jumping to the next one. Can you guys still hear me? Just to double check, you can see the screen and you can hear me okay?
Everything's good.
That's loud and clear.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to speak about A&J.
So we're a full-service Garmin dealer out of Springdale, Arkansas. We have this lovely new hangar that we're about to be certified for in Manila. We have a great team. There's probably about 75 years of experience altogether. Sonny has asked me to put together some special pricing for the group. I did. If anybody has any questions on getting a quote, I'm going to refer to Nima. Can't get him, call me. Our cell numbers are on there along with the office number. This was a great job. It was interesting to have the owner hand wrenches and be this involved. Great presentation, man.
Excellent. So we've got more, and then so Jeff. So hang on, because Jeff is going to talk about the special pricing, and then we've got some more stuff at the end.
I want to say one more thing. Me and John have been friends for forever, and he's the reason I'm in Manila. So I will say it was with this autopilot and John servicing it. I didn't want anybody else to give me a hand, so that's why John assisted.
All right.
So are you open to owner-assisted installs, or was just this time because it was the first?
I don't mind if you hang out.
Okay.
I mean, all the work is really being done by us. Sonny assisted, held a few things, brought parts. He's incredibly knowledgeable for somebody that doesn't do this. So we're open to having owners around. Doesn't bother me one bit. The more you know about your autopilot, the better safer you're gonna be in the air.
Bravo.
I agree with that completely. Sentinel Aviation, we're a full service, just a GA shop. We do everything from oil changes to annuals, pretty much anything GA requires. Sonny has been kind to introduce me to his PA-24 Comanche, and it's a very interesting airframe. It's changed my mind on Pipers. Anyone here knows me, they know I was never really a Piper fan from the beginning, hence the catfish comments, but I've come to love this little airplane. It's built well, it's tough, it's strong, and we've learned a lot with servicing these PA-24s. So if there's anything, if you're in the area, you need anything with them, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm very familiar with this platform now. So if I can help in any way, you get a hold of Sonny or whoever it needs.
And you've got 2 Comanches now.
Yeah, we do have 2 Comanches that we maintain here.
So it's growing.
Yeah, that's another reason I got to be involved with the Garmin install with Jeff. Is we did a lot of work, a very extensive annual. Did a lot of stuff to that airplane. So.
All right. Thanks, John. So, Jeff.
All right, so this is the offer that we're putting out for the Comanche group. The install is going to be 2 weeks or less. For access, you're going to be our price right now, materials and labor is $18,390. If you're doing 4 access, we're going to give you a $1,500 discount. The 3 access, we're at $16,290. $1,000 discount if you were on the Zoom meeting. 2 access, we're looking at $13,990. Now, $500 discount off of that. I want to hint that this is a factory condition pricing. Now, we're not one to go up on price drastically, but each Comanche is its own. So, and it's unique to its own. So definitely give me or Nima the details that you have. We'll ask you all the questions we need. We have availability. We're talking about maybe doing some deposits to get your slot, your time frame set. I will say that this is through July, the end of July. Garmin's going to do a price increase in August. So this pricing will have to change then. Other than that, you got anything?
Well, the only other thing I'll say, guys, is that I think it's actually a really great opportunity, because one of the things I'm excited about is potentially having a shop that knows Comanches and knows Comanche Autopilot installs. It helps to bring consistency to our birds because it's done very similarly. I think that it is, as we have an opportunity for something like that, I think it's great. And I hope that that's something that these guys can actually bring to the Comanche community. Just that consistency, that standard, and obviously it works well.
And we set a high standard for what we do.
Yes. All right. So that now we're to Q&A. I know Rob has some slides to go over, and I don't. We may want to do that before we do Q&A. But what I was going to do, we were going to set some cameras up in the plane so you guys could see the servos. So I would ask Michael, do you want to jump to Rob first, or do you want us to answer some questions? You tell me.
You can go ahead and answer some questions as you're getting stuff set up, and then I have to spotlight you two guys when you're ready to go. Okay.
Okay. I know Rob wanted to present some stuff too, though, and I don't want to take his time.
Oh, okay. Sure. CJ, are you on? This is the first time I'm doing this for the Comanche group, guys. So bear with me.
Michael, I believe I can just share my screen whenever
Okay,
you're ready for me to present.
Yes, go ahead. You go ahead.
All right. I will stop my share. Rob, are you going to go?
Yeah, once you stop. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Sonny, just before you guys continue, I have a little bit.
CJ, you're super broken up.
So, all right.
Yes.
Okay.
It is better. Okay, super.
Yeah.
How is it for CJ?
We hear you clearly now, but you are very broken up occasionally. A few times we had really a difficult time hearing you. So the question is did you want to do some Q&A? CJ, do we want to do Q&A right now, or do we want to go ahead and let Rob share his screen? I'm going to say go ahead and share your screen, Rob. Just take over.
Okay. Sonny, just real quick, for 59s and older, the problems that I messaged you on Messenger, I'm willing to go over that one, share pictures with later on with the Q&A. But if you guys want to do what you want to do, you know what I have to share.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yep. And I'm actually Rob Leonard is unique in that he is one of the most knowledgeable people on all autopilots that I have ever met. So I'm going to defer to Rob. The questions are in the chat window. I had a lot of connection. So Rob, you're on, and then we'll get to questions. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and run through some of the features on the GFC500 that I, from a safety perspective, find very important. I want you to know that what I pulled off, what I'm sharing here tonight is stuff that I pulled off of a YouTube video, Garmin training video, and that's the link to that video. I found it very informative. And so let's just dive into this. So one of the features that the GFC500 has is this ESP, or electronic stability and protection. It it provides flight envelope protection while hand flying. So in other words, in the background, when you're hand flying the airplane, this system is monitoring, you're safely monitoring your system, and what happens is it corrects for bank, pitch, and airspeed exceedances that are inputted into it. As you greater exceed that that limit, the harder the force is. And this system is automatically armed above 500 feet and automatically disarmed below 200 feet. Later on, we're going to talk about how to disengage this feature, which you can do in a couple ways. So basically, when you exceed a certain level of pitch, it's going to force, the aircraft back down, and same with roll. When you exceed a certain bank level, it's going to force the aircraft back to level, even when the autopilot's not engaged. So let's just take a quick look at the roll side of it. The system discourages banking beyond 45 degrees. And as you increase that bank beyond 45, it increases the pressure to return the airplane back to wings level. The same thing is true in the pitch axis. You can see your positive pitch angle here and your negative pitch angle here. And those limits are set for each airframe, and I'm not sure what they are for the Comanche. I know Sonny and I discussed that a little bit earlier today, and we didn't have a chance to really look at the AFM, which defines that, or the flight manual supplement for the GFC500. But it's going to limit your pitch attitude, and as you exceed that, it's going to push back. And again, I just want to emphasize that this is always on and monitoring your flight and for safety. Another feature that it has is that if it engages, that it automatically engages a level mode if ESP is active for 10 seconds. Oops. Active for 10 seconds in a 20-second time period. So in other words, let's say, God forbid, something happens to you and you get incapacitated and the airplane starts rolling over. If it's in ESP is engaged for 10 seconds in that 20-second period, it's going to automatically engage the autopilot, and it'll automatically do that, and it'll climb above 200 feet, and it'll level via the ESP. So it's going to automatically level the aircraft for you. If you're above 2,000 feet or descending below 15,000 feet, ESP disarms. So it's just a good safety feature. God forbid something happens to you up there. It also has high-speed protection, and it pitches nose up to prevent exceeding V&E. Low-speed protection, preventing the aircraft slowing below a specified speed by lowering the nose. Some of the requirements is that you have to have a GNS WAS, and a GTN or GTN XI. And this feature is also always inhibited below 200-foot AGL. When overspeed protection kicks in with the autopilot on, it automatically pitches the nose up to reduce the airspeed if exceeding V&E. And you get a visual alert max airspeed as indicated in this yellow thing right here, the central indication. And your vertical mode will change to IAS, indicated airspeed. And the previous vertical mode will be changed to armed. And then upon speed reduction, previous vertical mode becomes active again. And then for underspeed protection, again, this is when the autopilot's engaged, and this discourages operation below the established speeds. And when you get below that airspeed, this minimum speed pops up on your display, and the nose pitches down to increase your airspeed. And the vertical mode changes to IAS mode and an aural alert of airspeed if the altitude is in altitude critical modes. When the airspeed increases, the previous mode becomes active. So there are ways to disable this feature if you don't want it on. The first and quickest way is to hold down the autopilot disconnect button on the yoke. And while it's held down and the autopilot's disconnected, that feature is disabled. So let's say you're doing an approach and for some reason the system thinks that you're getting below your airspeed and you know that you're good, you can disconnect, hold the autopilot disconnect down and just manually fly the airplane and override it. If you have a G5 installed in your aircraft, you can manually disable it by pressing the knob and selecting ESP, and then press the knob to disable or enable or disable it. That green annunciator right there would go on and off, indicating whether it's on or off. If you have a GI-175, the same thing's true with the autopilot disconnect switch to temporarily disable it. In the GI-275, you hold the knob, swipe up, and select the options, and then select the ESP to enable and disable it. And then the G3X touch, same thing with the disconnect with the autopilot disconnect to disable it. And then you touch the AFCS box button and select ESP to disable and enable it. I wanted to share this warning feature. It says it's important, and whether this be a Garmin autopilot or another autopilot, it's important that you do not overpower the autopilot, and especially in the pitch axis, because the autopilot senses the pressure that you're exerting on it, and it thinks that it's out of trim. And what will happen is the trim will start running in the opposite direction, trying to seek to remove that that pressure that you're exerting. And what can happen is it will result in a large out of trim condition when that autopilot's disconnected. And so you want to avoid, opposing that. And lastly, I wanted to just take a look at the GFC STC maintenance manual. And it includes what they call instructions for continued airworthiness for this STC. So all the airworthiness considerations for this autopilot are contained in this document, and it can be found in this link here if you want to do a screenshot. If you're interested in downloading, you can just go on Garmin and just Google the EML's STC maintenance manual for the GFC500, and you can get it that way too. And so I'm going to change my screen share and just jump to that document. Just take me a second here. Can everybody see that?
Looks good.
Looks good. Okay, so let's see here. So this is what the manual looks like. I'm just going to go through to some important parts here. It talks about, the maintenance of this autopilot. Talks about, the pre-flight requirements, gives basic functional description. Talks about current draw here. Talks about ohmic bonding, or the bonding, which is very important for the trays and the grounding of this system, for lightning protection and preventing of noise introduction into the system. Grounding can be a very important thing. As a matter of fact, later on, we're going to see where that's a required test every, I think it was 2,000 hours, but we're going to look at that. And so this is, again, that official document that needs to be part of the STC package. And you should maintain this as an aircraft owner, and it's the instructions for instructions for continued airworthiness. This is really important to have with you and have your mechanic have, because it's going to detail all the requirements to maintain the airworthiness of this autopilot system. First, I want to mention that this autopilot is on condition servicing. So that means that there's no real requirements, like the servos don't have a TBO on them, or the gyros, like in some of the older systems, although older legacy autopilot systems, which there may have a time frame on them. There's no time frame on this. It talks about the required tooling to maintain it here in this section. And then it talks about maintenance intervals. And I just wanted to point out some things. this equipment electrical bonding test, which I talked about and just mentioned earlier, is very important to maintain it. And as a matter of fact, so important that every 2,000 flight hours or 10 years, whichever is first, they want you to perform this test. And in this document, they have all the the procedure for doing that. And equipment bonding, visual inspection, and that is if a suspected lightning strike occurs, because it could have burned up one of these bonding straps, and that you're to inspect after a suspected lightning strike. And then at every annual inspection, you're going to do a visual inspection of all the GFC500 components. You're going to do a functional test of the autopilot and or sun alert at every annual inspection interval. You know, you're removing and replacing servos or the controllers. Again, that's on condition. And then the control cables, again, are going to be looked at every annual. You're going to look for frayed cables and look for cable clamp slippage, different, you know, things that may be a problem. And they go into detail what the visual inspection procedure is. And that's, again, a good thing to present your mechanic and make sure that they're doing all these tests. Again, the lightning strike inspection procedure is very detailed on what you should do. Just going on, again, some details and just a little bit more. I wanted to show you the manual electric trim, pitch trim speed check, which, you know, is dependent upon your particular airframe. It'll, you know, and you just basically run it from one stop to the other, both up and down, and it should be in a certain window of time for that running. This is a document that should be supplied to you also after the installation, and this basically records all the details about the system components that are installed in your aircraft. It talks about the configuration of your system, and you can have this as a record, so that if for some reason that data is lost, you've got a record of how it's configured as it's installed in your aircraft. It's very important that that be filled out properly and accurately. This is also a good thing where you're going to, your mechanic's going to identify where that roll servo is installed, where the pitch servo and the yaw servo and the trim servo is installed in the airframe, both looking down from the top, but also from the side of the aircraft. And then it's going to talk about the wire routing too, if it was a twin aircraft. Getting ready there. See, they're already ready for the twin Comanche. See, they've got this already incorporated in there. And that's it. So I hope that you found that information helpful. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it back to you guys.
And I'm just going to, so part of why Rob is so uniquely, Rob, you ran Integrity Aviation at Hartford Brainerd for what, 14 years, along with all the stuff you did
it was actually
in service.
Yeah, it was actually
Had
VIP
dealt with a lot of
Avionics.
autopilots.
Mhm.
My bad.
Yeah, it was actually
Thank
CJ.
you.
It was actually
But,
VIP instruments and avionics. Yeah, no problem. But it's good. I
Gotcha.
really love autopilot
What was
systems. And I really
interesting was
love
our
this thing
first. Yeah. So for everybody who thought that because Rob Leonard came in and told us how to fix and maintain and configure all of our really old stuff, that he wasn't a fan of the new stuff, now you know he actually loves all autopilots.
Yes.
But because he then
Runs deep in
became
my blood.
one of the FISDO's avionics, that's because you don't have to be wiping us off the floor when you find our sad little bodies when we don't use them. But, you know, then became the avionics manager, kind of got it from all sides, and it makes your input, having that broad perspective, really uniquely valuable. So thank you for for coming in and taking all the time to go through the manuals and kind of highlight for us some of the things we really need to be looking at.
All right.
It's great to be here.
Sorry, everybody. Sonny, back to you.
All right, are y'all ready to see it work?
Okay, Sonny, hold on. Give me just a second to get your other videos. You got your other videos started?
I am now. So you should see a phone. You can see our setup. I don't know, it's kind of weird, but can you see me? It should say Sonny's phone.
Not yet. The side-by-side.
You don't see it yet. Just stand by for a second. Where is, okay, let's go ahead and spotlight you. Spotlight for everyone. And then where is Sonny's iPhone? I'm looking for it.
I see him. It's second to last page. Well, it's different on mine. He's in there.
Yeah, stand by. Here we go.
Michael's not usually having to sift through 75 people to look for one to bid. But I do want to say, all of you who heard that Matt Kirk was able to quarterback a couple of A&Ps crawling around Will Carpenter's airplane, this is a bit of the magic of how that happened that's coming up. This is a more complicated setup, but it was amazing.
All right. Are we good?
I think we lost it. We had it for a second. Spotlight for everyone. Okay, I'm gonna add your other spotlight. Stand by.
All right.
And we're gonna spotlight this for everybody.
My goal was not to see myself.
Oh gosh, there you go. I think we need to turn off the mic on one of those on your handheld camera there.
It's me. I'm not actually on the audio.
Okay, you're muted.
Yeah, but we have another phone. We'll disconnect from that too. Sorry. We're done. Is that better?
Okay, let me see what's happening here because it keeps taking the spotlight away. So let me try that again. We're spotlighting for everybody. Now we'll go to Sonny's phone and spotlight that so everybody can see what's going on. There you go.
Ah, there we go. Awesome. All right, so here's what we're going to do. So obviously we're not in the air, and so our tests are limited, but what we'll show you is we'll show you in the back of the plane, we'll show you the pitch and, well, really the pitch and the pitch trim working. We'll also show you, everybody should be able to see the elevator pretty well. So Jeff is going to go into the plane.
Sonny, can I interrupt for 1 second? If you turn your iPhone sideways, we'll get a widescreen view and get a much bigger view. Ah, beautiful.
There we go.
Hold it like that forever.
All right. So what we're going to do, so you should be able to see that pretty well. And so what we're going to do is we'll go in the tail, and let's see, John, I'll let you, do you want to hold it? And so can everybody see? So you can see the, I'm pointing at my screen, not that it helps. You can see the pitch and the roll servos. And so and you can also watch the tail. So by all means, watch the actual stabilator. And Jeff, do you want to do pitch?
Yeah, those hands are clear. Good job.
All right, can y'all see it moving?
And how smooth that is.
Do y'all see it or no?
Yes.
All right. So
perfect.
Pretty exciting to see it go. And so the other one, he's doing the roll right now.
No, hold on, we'll go down.
You want to do the pitch trim real quick so they can see the actual trim going once it stabilizes?
Yeah.
So you can see it going back down, and in a second, we'll use the manual electric trim, and you can actually hopefully see the trim go the other way, Jeff, if you can. Or no, I guess you should have went that way. You should have went the other way. I don't know if you guys can see it. Can you guys see it, Target?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So you can actually see it's actually turning up with the camera. You can obviously see it rolling through. Yeah, I think so.
There we go, yeah.
It's going right now.
Yep, it's going right now. And if you look at the plane, you can probably see it. Garmin is sensitive to the speed of your plane, so it runs it can run a different speed whether you're going fast or slow. Obviously, this is a different speed. What's that? Okay. So do you do pitch?
Yeah.
And we'll do pitch again, and you can see the balance weight going up and down.
The pitch up.
1 second.
And while you're doing it, just because this just came up, is that idler pulley just from the chat window? Is that idler pulley lubed internally, or?
Is the idler pulley lubed internally? I don't know that I can answer that question. It is a sealed bearing inside it.
Yeah.
So I believe because it's a sealed bearing, it basically doesn't need lubrication, but I would defer to your A&P or your Garmin dealer for that.
That's correct. That's correct, Sonny.
So you guys can see you saw the pitch, and let's see, do you want to see the roll? Jeff will show you the roll. Can you guys see in the plane? All right, and so now Jeff will make it roll.
Thanks a lot.
Sonny, if you could, okay, there you go, we can see that.
And hopefully you guys can see it banking back. If you
Back the other way.
yeah, if you could actually see, can you go back?
Yeah, I'm going back.
You'll see the move. So very smooth and just very, very fluid.
There you go.
So
It's the whole new ghost in the machine.
yes, yes, it is. And you know, I'll show you something really neat. I don't know if you can see it with that servo. Do you see that nice blinking green light?
Yes, we can.
That means everything is talking and it's happy and it's communicating. And a couple of other things I'll note, you can see the lace wiring that Jeff did there. And if I go on the inside for a moment, and I'm obviously talking away from here. Can you guys hear me still?
We still hear you great.
Okay, so you can actually see down there the connections, the way it's all wired up. You can see how pretty it is with the ADLs along the side and the lacing along and how clean it is. In fact, it makes the rest of my plane look dirty.
You want to look at the roll again? I've got it where.
We can. If let's see, we'll. Yep.
Roll left.
Roll left.
Really precise.
And then roll right. You can see it just kind of spot on. That's going in, is that in heading mode, Jeff?
Yes.
So that's in heading mode. So you can see it's using the magnetometer to do that. And of course you can see the tips roll as well. And then Jeff will disconnect, and I'll also show you no, it's okay. We're okay. All right, I think, and so there are still some panels to put back on the plane, just to be crystal clear. But for you guys looking, we've got to fabricate a new panel for the bottom, but this. Yep, so this is effectively my Comanche panel now. And like I said, we still have 1 or 2 more things to put on, but she is airworthy and she flies beautifully and the autopilot works like a champ. Oh, one thing I will say to everybody, and this is, we're gonna power the plane down. I'm gonna, well, I'll leave this on for just a moment and just shine up at the hangar. The head unit, the GFC500, it's not just a button panel. And so it's actually got accelerometers in that unit. And so if you don't have it mounted, or you know it is moving or whatnot, you have to have it mounted before you do the calibration. I say this because Jeff knew it already. I didn't know it, and I really thought it was just more or less a button panel. It's not. It's smarter than that. And if you read the forums, I've actually seen in forums where some people report it going bad and actually it having to be replaced. So it's not just a dumb button panel. It does have smarts built into it.
Very advanced.
So with that said, I think that's pretty much what we had for the presentation. We're happy with any questions. We can show you anything you want to see, other than it being in the air, obviously. And but we'll be happy to answer any questions or talk you through anything or show you anything.
Cool. We do have some questions in the chat window, and then you know, just having people unmute.
Oh wow, we have a lot of questions.
Oh, good, Rob. I'm glad, Sonny, you're looking at them. There's a ton of questions in between.
Yes.
CJ and I were going to read them to you. So
No worries. We will.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
grabbing my
But
chair
Sonny, just
and
a
we're
question
scrolling down.
for you.
If you don't mind, you can actually.
Sonny,
yes.
read each question before you answer it. It really helps people, especially those that are dialed in.
Yeah, no problem. I'm going to start with the one that says, "What is a Signet switch?" Because I think that's the first question that I saw come across. And I'll leave the other camera active just in case we want to see anything on the plane. But the Signet switch, and it looks like somebody answers, Hunter answered it. It's the switch that actually has the two buttons on top. So if we
split switch.
It's a split switch. So I'll actually, okay. John will show it to you on the yoke itself.
yeah, give me a second to get your phone back up again.
Okay.
Stand by.
In fact, if we want to, we can stop sharing this one and just share that one if you like, or
No, we can do that. Stand by.
Okay.
I don't see video from that. Okay, there we are. Sonny's been. Okay, we'll do both because that way we can look at you and there you go.
All right.
Oh, let's do it again.
We had and lost it. All right. So do you see that hat that's on there? And do you see the, you can see the trim switch that's on it. That little anodized aluminum piece mounts on top of the ram horn, if you will. And so you can see it's basically got two little switches on each side, one up, one down, and then an AP disconnect. Ignore my rambling switch on the right-hand side. That's my own 3D printing because I was playing around. Owner, produced. The one on the left is the Garmin one with that disconnect and the trim, and on the other side is the comm. All right. I will continue. I'll continue asking, or I'll continue down. Let's see. So another one. Let's see. There's a question about a disabled person getting into 260. I don't know that I'm the best person to answer that one, so I'll just defer that for now. How does the idler pulley get lubed?
I will say, let me jump into that one very quickly because our Comanche 260B, before we have it, it was owned by a person with polio, and they flew it with the hand control. I don't know what the full question was because I actually had a disconnect that killed my chat window, but does that partially answer the question?
All right, should I?
I would say this capability would have been amazing.
Yes. Should I continue, CJ?
Over to you, Sonny.
Go ahead, continue.
All right, so idler pulley getting lubed, that one we talked about, it's sealed. Let's see, I agree with Nima, the pilot's guide is a wealth of great information around it. Agree about the stabilator weights, no question there. Somebody asked if I don't have a vacuum pump anymore. No, I do not. As part of the G5 installation, the dual G5s, I actually removed the vacuum pump from the plane. It was actually not used for anything once I installed the dual G5s, and I'm happy to be rid of it, to be honest with you. I lost a lot of weight in the plane when I was able to remove that, not from the pump itself, but just from all the tubes and whatnot that went to it. Behind the panel opened up a ton. Let's see, should the pilot be hand trimming out that servo torque? I don't think so. So part of what gets you in trouble, part of what gets you in trouble is overriding the autopilot in any form or fashion. Because this one has auto trim, I don't believe that I should be trying to override it at all. I think that would be a dangerous thing to do. I could disable the trim if I wanted to and manually trim it, but I'm not going to do that. Let's see. So there's a question about Baron Pilot. I know that A&J did do the install in Baron Pilot, so I will let Jeff answer that. He had to step away for a moment. I did not. So did I have to drill out the floorboard rivets, or you asked if it was done already? My floorboard had the, it did not need to be drilled out because it already had the nut plates, so we were good. I was very thankful for that, as was John, I know. I am fearful that that would be a pretty big undertaking by itself. And then, let's see, Nima answered something about pricing. I won't go to that. Can I rename my iPad to Sonny? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, so just as a note, someone asked about whether the pricing included G5s or GI-275s. No, the pricing that's there is assuming that you have G5s, GI-275s, or G3X touches that are appropriate for the plane. It requires that to be in place. You could, I think, get by with one G5, but you will compromise on functionality, just like you could get by without a navigator, but you would lose the GPS, the nav function that's there. So it's that is an important thing to note. A&J, of course, can do any of those things for you if you so choose to get them to do that. Let's see. All right, I think that is the, I don't see any more. Oh, there we go. Did we adjust the tension and rigging on all your control cables before beginning installation? If not, would you recommend it? So my extensive annual that John recommended, we went through and we were very particular about making sure the rigging on this plane was proper. And so we took a lot of time. I assisted him with that, making sure that it was within spec to book. We did the right thing, even talked to Hans Newbert about it. And so when we went into this install, we believed that it would be in rig still, but we did check every tension to make sure that it actually was in rig before we installed.
That's critical.
It is absolutely critical. No doubt about that. What is
Sonny,
yes?
This is Rob. Could I just interject something about that?
Yes.
Yeah. Regarding the main cables, their tensions and alignment and everything is very critical. But another thing too that will affect an autopilot system is any friction in the systems and any of the load bearing points or any of the pulleys that support the cables, because then the autopilot has to override that friction. And so it's very important that your mechanic gets the friction out of the system also in order for that autopilot to perform correctly.
That's actually a great point, Rob. So one of the things that we did in my extensive annual was we actually laid eyes on pretty much every pulley in the plane, made sure that it was proper, in good shape, lubed, and moved correctly. So we
did it again during the install.
And then we did it again. So all that was absolutely done, and it is absolutely critical that that is done. One thing I do want to mention that I didn't mention in the slides, but what's interesting is that now that I've got the Garmin Autopilot, I also have tensions for all of the bridle cables. So during my annuals, John will have to check the bridle cables in addition to all of the standard control cables that are out there. Let's see. I'm sorry?
I just want to put one note in that, you know, as you know, there's been an autopilot series. Every single vendor, so that would be Garmin and S-Tech and Trio, said, you know, no autopilot installation estimate includes getting your airplane in rig, and all of them consistently, and I think Rob Leonard said this as well, 95% of airplanes come in not in rig for their autopilot install. So that time ends up being extra because you have to have your airplane in rig in order to install and configure an autopilot. And finally, I just want to remind everybody that the best speed mod that Pat Kiefer said she ever found was getting her airplane in rig. So you may as well do it anyways because you'll go fast.
Jeff, I think there were some questions about Baron Pilot and whether A&J did the install for Baron Pilot. So I thought you would.
Yeah, we did. We took a little bit of time, but there was a lot going on in that install. It wasn't just the Aspen, it was AOA and
Primary engine monitor.
primary monitor. It was a busy install. It was good though.
And then there's a question from Ed, which said something about what is included with the materials and labor.
So all the non-supplied Garmin materials are included, and there's rivets, there's nuts and bolts, there's a lot of non-Garmin supplied materials. So that's included in the labor. We will check the rigging, make sure it's in tolerance when the plane comes in, and we get it pull it apart. That's one of the first things we do is check rigging.
If not, that will be additional.
If not, it is additional. It's not a whole bunch. It's usually 4 to 6 hours at the worst case scenario. Basically, that is the labor is what it is. It's pretty spot on, especially after doing this bird here. I feel it can get better and faster, but that's as the birds come in.
Yeah, and I think some of the things that Jeff did when he did the install, when we did the calibration, you actually calibrate the autopilot on the ground with simulated airspeed, simulated altitude, making sure all that works. One of the things that Jeff did was ensured, again, even though my plane had the pitot static certified, that there were no static leaks, that everything was good. Again, you may not need to do that. I don't know that the Garmin manual even calls out for it, but it's part of going above and beyond and making sure it works.
And you get a static leak, you're going to get porpoising in the autopilot, and I guess it's over what should be done, but it's the way we do it. So.
I have an operational question if you got time to answer.
Absolutely.
So earlier, I was kind of late to this meeting, but earlier you showed the little blinking light in that servo in the tail, and or whatever that was. Anyway, what happens if the light stops blinking and you're flying? Do you get some kind of a code up there? Does the autopilot disengage? Loss of communication, how does it react?
Yeah, so I'll speak to it, and then Jeff will give you the official answer. One of the things that's really neat about the way that this is wired is that the autopilot disconnect actually runs through all of the servos.
Yes.
And so what can happen is if any servo is not happy, it's overloaded, as a problem, whatever, it will literally issue a disconnect across the board so that the autopilot disengages.
And you'll get a display in your G5 that shows it as well.
And an audible alert. It actually, it functions identical to if you push the AP disconnect button, basically if you do that. So it literally, that's one of the neat things about it, is that I think it disengages the clutch technically, but that signal, each servo itself can send out that signal, which I think is really neat.
Yeah, that's a good feature. Pretty high tech. Thank you.
All right.
Sonny, do you mind if I interject with the the earlier model Comanches upon installation?
No, by all means, please do.
Is there any way you can zoom in on the trim servo?
John can, yes.
All right, that'd be perfect.
What do you want to see?
What would you like?
If you look towards the aft bulkhead where the two pulleys are on the bulkhead.
Right.
Yeah.
Other way, other direction. The bulkhead towards there you go.
Okay.
If you notice the two drilled holes left and right above the two pulleys that are there in the phenolic guides.
Yeah.
There's actually a phenolic guide on my 59 that has the cable going through it. So in the later models, Garmin, I guess they're going to come out with a later revision saying to drill the phenolic guide off and actually just install the bridle cable on the trim servo. But it's kind of funny how your model has the holes drilled exactly where my phenolic cable would have been installed.
So it's really funny, Hunter, because we've got another Comanche in John's hangar that's actually in the corner.
It needs some love if anybody's interested in a Comanche. But it actually has the phenolic blocks with the lines through it. So after you told me about that, we went and checked that one, and we saw it, and I was thankful. But yeah.
So my Avionics tech actually emailed Garmin, and they're on it. They actually sent out a tech, and they're actually going to revise the manual. But you pretty much what they said was to drill the phenolic guide off, and just to drop the cable down just a little bit to actually line up with the bridle cable on the servo, which is, it's crazy to see the different, variations of the models.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Another thing on my 59, and I think, don't quote me on this, but I think Zach Grant said that everybody had a riveted in floor till 1963. But before that, it was all riveted in with explosive rivets. So you'd put heat on them and they explode like back in the wartime. But we actually, I don't know if I can share my screen, but we actually had to cut holes in the floor to have access, because we don't have to drill the floor out every time we wanted to work on the servo. But it was pretty neat and different. And I think 1963 and older are going to cause a little bit more of a price increase because of the labor to install the servo.
Yeah.
Well, and the labor of, because I don't imagine you're going to use floating rivets to reinstall the floor later. So you
no.
And all the nut plates.
I had to reach out to all the old guys on the forum, because I'm looking at the rivet like it was it looked like a Cherry Max rivet on the shank, but you looked at the head, it looked like a solid rivet. And I'm like, what is this? Well, it turns out it was a explosive rivet.
Hey Hunter, could you share your picture? Because your picture was real illuminating.
Yeah,
too. Can you guys
and
tell
not
me how to
only
do that?
that, but there are a lot.
I tell you what,
Yep,
hang on.
so go to the green button on the bottom.
Let me do this real quick.
Michael can help you.
I'm going to put my background as my as the picture. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can move my head out of the way.
There you go.
Yeah.
Can you all see that?
Yeah.
So those were the holes we ended up cutting into the floor, because when you remove the servo, you don't want to have to remove the entire floor to get to it. You got to remove the side panel, this, that, and the other. But the front, this is reverse. So this would be the pilot side. So just think about it backwards. But the front hole is to install the servo or remove the servo in a service technique. And the rear hole is to get to the bridle cable to attach it to the cable.
Yep.
But I don't know. I would say another 4 or 5 hours of labor just to kind of cut a hole, add some nut plates, and screw it in.
Did you have any trouble attaching those two forward-facing rivets on that bracket?
Yeah.
On which bracket?
I know
that bracket. Yes, for sure. So it actually calls out for a special rivet. I don't know if y'all realize that, but it is
rivets.
It's an AN4 rivet, but with an AN3 shank, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So one fun fact we didn't include in the presentation, but we actually we couldn't find those rivets easily, but there was actually an oops kit that John found or Jeff found. And so
a lot of the RV guys have that, because they kind of drill a hole out too big, and then they have a big old oops,
the big head. Yep. so it had those rivets in it.
Yep. And just looking at the floor of the original models, it had a big shank or a big head and a little shank, and I guess they just wanted to carry the load like the earlier models did.
Okay.
So it's crazy to see, 62 years later, we're kind of caretakers of these old antiques. So
yes.
Very cool.
All right. Anyways, back to y'all. That was the two little things we found so far.
Cool. All right. So I know Chris has a question out there. That is, that's going to be a Jeff. So Chris asked there, could you share how much of the price is materials versus labor? Quotes I've received are significantly higher. So I'll answer one question, then I'll turn it over to Jeff. So in the Facebook group, there is a thread where people are talking about the prices they got. And to be quite honest with you, we've seen anywhere from $15,000 for a 4-axis all the way up to $24,000 or $25,000 for a 4-axis install. They vary wildly in the quotes that folks are getting so far. So I don't know when you get those quotes from folks, I don't know really what, I don't know what's in those quotes per se, but I know Jeff and John were able to do it with mine, and I'll
Did they
let,
have to remove an autopilot? You had a blank canvas.
I did have a blank.
Yeah.
So the prices are based on a blank canvas, not on additional removals of autopilots, removals of other
Right.
systems, airframe things that you find during cutting holes for
Yes.
access.
So I'll start from the top and work down. I don't mind sharing the material costs. So 4-axis, you're 11,390. 3-axis, 10,290. 2-axis, 8,990. Now this is considering that it's in factory condition with the trapezoidal yokes. Now, if you do have an existing pitch trim or autopilot in there, then I broke it down to it's going to cost roughly 6 to 8 hours of labor, but that's quoted on intake. So, and when we get a plane in, we do an intake on it. We go through and list any squawks that we notice, and then at that point, while you're there with us, I mean, it's done immediately. So when you're there with us, then we'll talk about that, and I need to see it before we price it because each plane's different. For the autopilot.
Yes. So the quote I've got
Actually,
was like over 10 grand higher, but it's the only reputable shop in my area. And so that's why I asked the question. That's a big disparity, and I'm wondering if they just market their parts more. Does Garmin control any of that?
I mean, you have a retail and you have what you can advertise price, but not on the autopilots. It's retail. So
Chris, one thing to check is that the GFC500 requires a G5 or a GI275. And the prices we're looking at here include the materials and the labor, but it does assume that you already have an installed G5 or GI275, right, guys?
Yes, thank you.
I've actually, I have all that. I actually took the airplane to this avionics shop and had them look at it and do what I would call similar to an intake. They didn't take the airplane apart, but they looked at it.
Yep.
And I don't have an autopilot. I've never had an autopilot. It's a clean slate as well.
Chris, we get guys all the way from Hayward, California, bringing us autopilot installs. So,
well, you might get mine.
Welcome to give me a call and we can talk about it. So,
okay.
I would say
a quick question for you guys, because this is just a point of. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sonny.
I was just going to say, by all means, give Jeff a call after this meeting or tomorrow or this week. If nothing else, he can give you some great feedback and some tips on what might be entailed. But I would tell you, remember that this is pricing that comes from having actually installed one in the plane, right? Yes. So your dealer may be assuming it's like a Bonanza or it's like a different plane, right? This comes with the experience of an install. So that's the one comment I'd make. If they don't have that, I don't know what they might be assuming for materials or labor in the install. Sorry, CJ, you were saying?
Yeah.
That's good.
No, not at all. Just a point of confusion. And this is, as we were getting ready, actually, Rob Leonard and I were talking about this today. Is the GAD29B required for the GFC500 with the G5s and the GI270, or rather with the G5s?
It is not. It is not.
Just, okay.
So with just the G5, you get roll pitch level and your air data modes, and then all of your envelope protection. When you add the GMU 11 to it, which if you have a G5, more likely you have a GMU 11, you have heading mode. When you add the GAD29, now you have your nav and approach modes. And then of course you add your GTN series or WAS capable GPS, you'll have your GPS steering as well.
That's really helpful. That summary of what each enabling component is, and then what that gets you. Like the GAD29 gets you your nav, so that the GPS can guide the autopilot, is what you're saying, yeah?
Absolutely.
And the GMU 11 gets you what again?
Your heading bug, so you're heading for your roll.
So one of the interesting
And I
things,
think-
you could walk into it with literally a G5 and add the GFC500. And then as you add the second G5 plus a GMU11, you get that heading
You get that
capability,
heading
right? And then
capability,
you could absolutely grow the system from, the beginning to end if you want.
Yeah.
That's incredibly helpful. So you could start with a 2 servo system for pitch and roll, and then you could later add the different components to expand your
Yes.
capabilities, add in that is.
And
that
really
was
at a
not
great
clear.
cost. The material is not that expensive compared to other autopilots out there for what it does.
Jeff, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Does the G5 or the GFC500 also offer a system without trim, like it have a trim prompter? Is that an
Yes,
option?
it does prompt you for trim. Your G5 will say trim up. It'll say trim down. Even if you don't have the pitch trim, it's telling you, just like the STEX, STEC 30, STEC 55. Well,
yes, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. What else we got?
Any other questions?
Do you ever have anybody installing it? Just the two? Well, I guess you haven't done that many, but has anyone heard of their people just doing a 2-axis without the trim? I guess you save about $3,000.
Roughly, but
well, in the Comanche, it's one thing, right? But in you've installed lots of 500s and other planes.
Yeah.
So do you see people doing the beginning installs?
Yeah, actually, the majority of the 500s that we've done is on like 182s. I'm going to give an example. Have been 2-axis. Matter of fact, we have one that we did. Oh God, what was it? We did it 9 months ago, John?
Yankee Bravo?
Yeah, about 9 months ago, and I think he's going to come back in for pitch trim the next 3 months. So, I mean, it's kind of a la carte when you look at it like that. If you start at the 2-axis and work your way up, it's a lot more doable. Of course, your labor, you're going to pay out the labor because you already have the plane opened up. If you do what you want, then your labor cost goes down.
Jeff, would you install or recommend installing the wiring harness, in the case that they put a 2-axis in with the possibility of a trim feature?
Absolutely. I would recommend it. Especially, I mean, now you're already going to all the same locations anyhow. So with the 2-axis, the only place you're not going to be at necessarily is at the pitch trim, which is at the tail, at the very back of the tail. It's not that much more to go ahead and run that extra wiring for preemptive.
Yeah, and Rob Leonard, thanks for bringing that up, because that comes up from all of the different autopilots, that when you're in for annual, now that the final designs are complete and you can get, and so the STCs are either approved or are being applied for. This goes for the twins too. As soon as the manufacturer has finalized their design and the FAA has some agreement about what these harnesses are going to look like, that's the part that is really labor intensive to get in, well, other than mounting the brackets, as you guys just showed. So when you're in annual, even if you're going to be doing your autopilot later, if you can get your harness in, it really saves time. Is that correct from your perspective?
Talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's in for annual, the cost to get the harness put in is minimal compared to the install. So I would suggest that if you're planning on doing it.
That's where we have a great relationship out here. We have a
Yes.
maintenance shop. We pull it in for annual. The Garmin dealer can come over, do their things while we're doing our inspection, and it just works hand in hand seamlessly.
So that's another opportunity. I'll throw a pitch out for John. If you guys are looking to.
Would Garmin have any problem with those harnesses?
Oh, would Garmin have a problem with the harnesses?
We do everything but the connection.
Sorry, my question was that would Garmin be okay with the A&Ps getting the harnesses in, given that those are not the key?
No, the avionics have to do the harness. So what John was saying is it's symbiotic, because if he's got it pulled apart for annual and somebody knows they're going to do an autopilot, then basically he would call me, which he does
Or just
now.
bring the airplane over. let them
Or
do
bring it over to me, and either or. I mean, his hangar's right next door. And we have the same relationship in Springdale as well. You know, it would take the avionics shop would have to be the one to install the harness and pre-wire it. So.
Yep.
But what I would
And
say
forgive
is,
all
if
my
you're-
questions.
yeah, so
Okay.
if anybody is looking to get their annual done when an autopilot's happening, and John's going to throw something at me after this, but you could probably stop
Maybe
into
not.
Manila and knock both out in one shot if you felt comfortable with a different A&P doing your annual. So he does know Comanches now. Even if it was begrudgingly, he knows them now well, and
impressed
he can definitely do it. So
We're happy to help.
all right. If there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and wrap.
We are super happy to have another Comanche shop in our area. Well told. Thank you for being part of our Comanche maintenance. Absolutely outstanding job, Sonny. And then your A&P and your shop all working together the way you have. It's, Rob Leonard kind of referred to it, and he's got more experience in this area than anybody else I know. It's a powerful combination. It makes for a better airplane and a better pilot. We're so excited to see this.
It's a great trifecta. Thank you for the.
Can I say something? I just wanted to clarify something that I don't know whether I misunderstood Sonny, but I got the impression that when you were showing us the video, that you were relying on the yaw damper to do the rudder trim.
Yes.
Well, I think I should be correcting that. The yaw damper does not remove, in my opinion, the requirement to use the rudder trim. It's just that it's not doing it. When you're in a turn or something like that, the yaw damper will correct any yaw. But when you're climbing, or then you level off and then you descend, you should, in my opinion, adjust the rudder trim. I just wanted to make sure that was clarified.
Yeah, that's fair. I actually did. In my Comanche, I rarely need to adjust the rudder trim, so quite often I forget about it. But yeah, I think it's a manual trim. I think it should be trimmed out. I think that makes it easier. I know Garmin does a good job of automatically trimming it, automatically adjusting. But to your point, you should manually trim it.
But yes, because if you don't manually trim it, the rudder trim is going to have, as it said there, some quite high number of torque, and it's going to be constantly on that servo, which is not going to be good for it.
That's right. And what's interesting is that as you see my flight, because we were doing lots of turns and twists and whatnot, you could see it varying depending on which direction I was going, based on lots of other factors, the wind and whatnot. So again, I'm still learning, right? I'm still a fairly new pilot, so it's a journey. So I appreciate your clarification.
Can you tell me what the cable tensions are?
The cable tensions for a Comanche or the cable tensions for the GFC500?
The cable tensions for the Comanches, where do you find them? And then how do you put your tensions on your bridle on the autopilot? How does that all fit together?
So,
and you're rigging it. Where do you find those specifications at? There's nothing in the maintenance manual.
Everything.
They are in the maintenance.
Everything is in the service manual. Everything related to the plane, the Comanche, is in the service manual for the plane. It tells you exactly where to put the tensiometer. In some cases, it's right up front. In some cases, it's other places. But it tells you exactly where to put it. It's all called out in the PA24 service manual. That's what we used. And then the tensions for the bridles are all called out in the Garmin install manual. These two guys can talk to it.
The Garmin install manual.
Found in the maintenance manual.
So what is it? 20 pounds then, or how much tension do you put on them then? 60 pounds? What's the tension on them?
For the